Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for making your time. My name is Norida Hadiati. I'm a secretary of Master of Law program. Today, I will be your moderator in this webinar, SDGs webinar series. Start this event to Ms. Rina Shahrullah, S.Kom, Ph.D., to giving opening speech. Time is yours.
Thank you very much, Ibu Nur. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The Sustainable Development Goals webinar today focuses on Goal 12 until Goal 15. Goal 12, sustainable consumption and production, must become the responsibility of everyone. A simple question can be asked to ourselves whether we finish the food on our plates or some goes to the garbage bins. The United Nations reported that every year about 1.3 billion tons, which is worth it around $1 trillion, are thrown by consumers to the bins. Poor transportation and harvesting practices are also contribute to the food waste all over the world. This goal will be discussed by the respective speakers from South Korea and Indonesia. Today, every country is being affected by climate change. The United Nations reported that greenhouse gas emissions may decrease about 6% in 2020. This happens because of the travel bans and economic slowdowns resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic. However, this condition is not permanent. Therefore, every country must continue its strategies and action to reduce the effects of climate change. The speakers from India and Indonesia are going to share their knowledge on the implementation of Goal 13 climate actions in their own countries. Bali is one of the Indonesian provinces which is very famous for its beaches and cultures. It is so unfortunate that some of the beaches are polluted by plastic waste. People in Bali produce approximately 1.6 million tons of waste every year, and around 33,000 tons end up in the ocean. Saving the ocean is not merely the government's task and responsibilities. It must become the priority of all people because the ocean destruction will directly impact on our planet. Other problems such as overfishing and ocean acidification remain to occur. Thus, it affects on the marine ecosystems and biodiversity. Goal 14 of the SDGs focuses on life below water will be one of the topics discussed today as well. This topic will be discussed by Indonesian speaker. The United Nations reported that human activity has altered almost 75% of the Earth's surface. One of the examples is deforestation, which causes the forest as the world lungs has become smaller and smaller. Another example, which is almost every year, is experienced by people living in Sumatra and Kalimantan province of Indonesia, is forest fire because of human wrongful acts. These are some examples of the problems on land faced by Indonesia. Yet, there are many countries experiencing the same situation. Hence, the speaker from Bangladesh will share her insights regarding Goal 15 on the SDGs, namely Live on Land. I'm very sure that the presentations today will deepen our understanding regarding the facts, challenges, and solutions regarding the implementation of Goal 12, 13, 14, and 15. I would like to thank everyone who are now joining this webinar today. Thank you very much. I would like to hand this mic back to the Master of Ceremony.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rina, to the opening speech as a start to our webinar series, Pillar of Environmental Development Goal. Today we have Prof. Binod Kumar from India. Prof. Binod, time is yours.
Yes. Okay. So basically, good morning you all from India, and a warm greeting from India. I would directly go to the topic which I am going to present, that can law prevent disaster. So how I have taken this topic, and how I have connected this topic with the today's agenda of Goal 15 is that life on the land is very important issue, and which is directly related to the disaster event, because in disaster it is not that people are impacted, only people are impacted. Otherwise, you can see that natural flora and fauna as well as ecosystem services, all these are impacted by the disaster. But when we are accounting the loss due to disaster, you will hardly find that all these things are counted in the loss. Globally, it has been trained that we have been able to account, or you can say account losses only in terms of property as well as in terms of loss of human life. So there are n number of things in between which has not been captured, and life on the land, that Goal 15 captures all these things, that how you protect within the national municipal legal system, how you create capacity of the nation state, and how a nation state are responding to that particular challenge which are coming on in terms of recurrent disaster, whether it is related to disaster, weather related event like climate change, or some extra with climatic events. So I would try to focus my presentation on a specific part which talks about that how India is responding to Goal 15, and how these things has been, that means Goal 15 has been protected, and how legal capacity and policy has been increased by the passage of time, and in how India has responded to Goal 15. Next slide. Just to give the overview that how this particular legal jurisprudence has emerged across the globe, that whatever is happening, it has been from the part of jurisprudence. You must have heard in the tort law, we talk about act of God. So whenever the loss of property, loss of nature, or loss of humankind, or maybe the loss of flora and fauna, whatever was happening due to disaster, life on the land, it was very much understood that it is act of God. So there was no one culpable. So no law was there, even a state was, and this particular perception was prevailing before 1970s. Before 1970s, and the states were very reluctant to take initiative, because they were considering that all these things are because it is creation of God, so they taking toll. It is all you can say divine in nature. So second one is the second understanding in the jurisprudence in terms of fixing the culpability of the actor in terms of loss of life in on the land, was that it is act of nature. So whatever natural event is happening, it is act of nature, so no human being is responsible. So in that case also, if nature, we cannot punish nature, that is the problem. So there was no culpability in this particular case also. So recently, after emerging a new jurisprudence and scientific innovation, we have reached to the conclusion that whatever is happening somewhere, man or the community or states are responsible for action or inaction on their part. So whenever we are talking about a state's action or people's action or inaction on tackling a life on the land, we talk that how we can prevent life on the how we can prevent loss of life, property on the land, or the ecosystem, or the or maybe the environment, holistic environment. How we can save all these things from the attack of the human being, or maybe a state itself is harming or damaging many assets, natural assets. So who is responsible? How law will act on into that? What are the policies? I will talk that what is the specific cases about India. Next slide. So international legal framework regarding protection of life on the land related to disaster is on the 1990s International Decade on Natural Disaster Reduction was concluded. So it started in 1991 and it ended in 2001. So in that particular period itself, Yokohama is a city in Japan, and Yokohama Strategy and Plan of Action for the Safer World was concluded in 1994. That how you protect your protect life of the people, how you ensure life and property, as well as how you ensure protection of ecosystem at your place, so that it does not lead us to the disastrous event. So this was first time that at the global level, people initiated and negotiated action plans for the disaster law, and this was the first event. So next event, watershed event at the international level was Hyogo Framework of Action. It was started in 2005 and concluded in 2015. So it has 5 priorities of action: making disaster risk reduction a priority, improving risk information, early warning. So all you can see on the slide. So what I am trying to essentially emphasizing is that all these international laws are trying to see that how we can create a risk information where community itself are able to take advantage of the information, and they act as a catalyst and they protect their local resources, community resources, because many times the states are not in a capacity to protect the resources. So even communities are empowered, or many times communities, local communities are talked at in the international document, that how we can invigorate or how we can integrate their or enhance their capacity in protection of life on the land. Next slide. So the most recent law that that has concluded and that coincides with the SDG is Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. So at the time of SDG, there was one more important agreement at the international level was concluded, that is called as Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. So this particular international agreement talks about that 4 specific priorities of action, like in the understanding disaster risk, strengthening disaster risk reduction. So essentially it talks about that how law can be enhanced, how capacity of the state can be enhanced through laws. Investing on the disaster, that one, there has been a recurring problem, and it is all where, because the disaster or the protection of non-human life, that means non-human species life is not talked much about at the international or the national level. It has not been a priority for the state. So we have not been able to focus our policy in protecting largely to the ecosystem. So investment in that regard, investment at the national level has been a real challenge. So this particular law, international agreement or law is also talking about that investing in disaster risk reduction for the resilience. And the next is enhancing disaster preparedness for effective response. And the last one is build back better recovery, rehabilitation and reconstruction. So last one I will explain that whenever any event is happening, so how we have to create the ecosystem which is more strong, more resilient than the earlier, so that even if disaster is coming, because we all the time we cannot prevent disaster, so but we can mitigate the loss of the disaster. So that was the idea behind putting that particular the last target, that how we build the resilient community in terms of not only in terms of community capacity building, also in terms of enhancing the non-physical and physical infrastructure, that how you create the system to combat the crisis of emerging out of climate change, or maybe combat the crisis out of non-weather events which are disastrous in nature. Next slide. So national framework in India, so because I am speaking, so I am supposed to speak that how India is combating this particular challenge. So I have given you international framework idea, a broad idea about the international framework. So India is a federal country. Just to give the brief snapshot of the legal structure in India. India is a federal country, so we have a constitution at the federal level, and that constitution also deals with laws, and that constitution also talks about division of powers between a state and provinces. So we have a three-tier structure. So one at the federal, and second one at the state, and third one at the local level governance. So disaster, or you can say disaster as a subject matter of governance, is not available in our constitution. But obviously, this one environment is available. Environment in our constitution is mentioned, and there are several instances where directly it has been discussed, and it has been based upon, and you can say that it underlines that how a state should act and how a state should set the priority to keep the climate change as well as environment tuned to the safer life for the people. So within the constitution, within the Indian constitution, you can see that the environment has been discussed. Directly disaster has been not discussed, but disaster as a subject matter of legislation, it has been discussed, it has been withdrawn, or you can say it has been withdrawn from the social security, social insurance, employment, unemployment, and the concurrently. So we have three kind of lists. First one is central list, second one is state list, and third one is concurrent list. So it is all running from the constitution itself. So what is happening is that for union list, list one, only federal government can make the law, and in case of a state list, only a state government can, provincial government can make the law, and for concurrent list, both state and federal level government and union government are able to make the law related to that. So if you talk about disaster, it has largely been federal law in India. And if you talk about environment and ecosystem protection and life on the land, it is largely a shared responsibility of the state as well as federal structure. So both central government and state government are working, and even both laws, central and state laws and policies, are available at the both level, provincial level as well as federal level. Next. So recently, recently what has happened is that in cases we have seen in India, we have seen that many times a state is not able to take action because absence of law. Many times we have, as I talked, that we hardly talk about loss of ecosystem services, loss of flora and fauna, life on the land. That only that doesn't only qualify for the human being and the loss of the property. So life on the land includes a non-human species. So when we talk about life on the land, we should integrate policies, we should tune our policy to integrate all these. That means forest, ecosystem, flora and fauna, as well as many kind of ecosystem services. That includes everything. So when a state was not able to take action against the polluter, or in many cases, Indian state was not able to contain them because due to absence of law. So tort law was involved in that particular case, and our Supreme Court has been very active. Supreme Court of India has been very active in tackling this situation, because largely it was dealt through the public interest litigation. We call it public interest litigation. So anybody can write a letter to the Chief Justice of India, and if matter pertains and if matter has a locus standi, then these particular cases can be taken up by the court itself. So you don't have to hire a lawyer. Court itself will appoint the suo motu. Court itself appoint the amicus query, and that particular fellow will take over the case, and that particular case will be debated in the highest court of India, and through that it will be regulated. That means whatever judgment is coming out of that. So tort law has been very helpful in tackling situations. Even our constitution talk about constitutional tort. So Article 300 of our constitution talk about constitutional thought. So it also fixes responsibility of the state and state actor. When somebody from the state, maybe minister or maybe secretary, bureaucrats are not able to take action, this particular law or this domain of law, tort law, tries to capture the essence, try to capture the domain which has not been captured by the codified law. So wherever codified law is not available, our Supreme Court of India, that means highest federal court, has been very active, and they have been able to take up cases which are related to life on the land. So I will discuss one instance in that particular regard that is very important. That one of the minister in India was establishing a motel. That means a hotel in a hotel industry for the tourism in a very fragile environmental zone. So this matter came in the Supreme Court. This matter came in the Supreme Court of India through a public interest litigation. So when it reached to the Supreme Court of India, then through public interest litigation, it was debated and it was argued in the highest court, and it was discussed that how a particular person who is a public servant can divert the natural property, which is very fragile in nature, environmental property, which has been bequeathed by the state to the people to the state. So how a public servant can divert all these properties for the private purposes. So this was case, and this was in this particular case that is called as Kamal Nath case in India. It is very celebrated, and we teach our students in the classes. And this is unparalleled across the globe. I have seen that this is very, you can say, this is very important law in terms of protecting environment. So this particular judgment has a far-reaching consequences in India regarding protecting life and on the land. Next slide. So specific, when we talk about a specific arrangement to tackle loss of life on the land, especially human life, because as I told you that a state has lesser priority regarding non-human species. So the state is more focused into the property, loss of property as well as life of a human being. So a special arrangement, this is a federal law, Disaster Management Act 2005. After tsunami, we have earlier we were having a different arrangement. Earlier we were not dealing with a separate law. After tsunami in 2004, we have enacted a special law to tackle disaster in India. So that is called Disaster Management Act. So basically this particular law tries to put the institutional mechanism at the place, both at the federal level, state level, and the local level. So this particular law has created institution at the national level, federal level, provincial level, as well as the local level. So these institutions has not been able to take up responsibility because these are transplanted institutions. Many times they have shortage of funds, they have shortage of staff, they are not able to take up issues in a very you can say responsible manner. But you can say that this particular law, Disaster Management Act 2005, has been able to put system in a place. At least into the pre-2004 scenario, there was no system that which department will act in what manner. So at least this particular Disaster Management Act has been able to put system in place in India. And I also want to underline one more thing is that the arrangement of ministries, that means arrangement of bureaucracy at the central level was different in pre-2004 situation. So after tsunami, we have been able to revamp our disaster management system to protect life on the land. So how we have done, because earlier our disaster management was largely the domain of the agricultural ministry, because the disaster management act was not there and that particular ministry was taking over. So now we have a special disaster management division within the Ministry of Home Affairs at the provincial level. And you will surprised to know that many states which are coastal states in India and which are having a fragile environmental zone, they have especially enacted a disaster ministry in their state. So you can see that actions at both level, at the provincial level, at the provincial level as well as at the federal level. So this action has been started at both levels. Next slide. So just I wanted to talk about that how this particular things has been well played in the court of India. That means I wanted to talk about the judicial response. That means these are the laws and mechanisms that has been put in place, especially in context of protection of life. So I was talking more focusedly on the disaster management. So that means the protection of life and property, especially on the land. So I would like to underline that what has been the response of the court, how court is responding to these particular laws, and how court sees that a state has to act in a particular manner. So one of the case which is very celebrated is that Subhash Kumar versus the state of Bihar. That in this particular case, Supreme Court of India, that means highest court in India, has enunciated Article 21 of the Indian Constitution talks about right to life. So right to life. Right to life that has been given as a fundamental right to Indian citizen. Every Indian citizen enjoys right to life provided under Article 21. So this particular law, this particular judgment by the Supreme Court talks about the provision of pollution-free water and full enjoyment of life. So when Supreme Court argued the article, Supreme Court enunciated the principle of right to life, and broadly it has created a system, or you can say very liberal interpretation by the Supreme Court has paved the way, where we can find that even a pollution-free environment comes under the right to life. That means if a citizen in India has a right to life, that is flowing from Article 21, which is directly, you can say, any citizen can go to the court to implement that particular right. Fundamental right is justiciable in the court of law. And the second case is that Maneka Gandhi versus Union of India. In this particular case, Supreme Court talks about given the liberal interpretation by the Supreme Court, it talks about holistic enjoyment of life by the people. So what Supreme Court talks is that life on the land is not merely a life on the land. Life on the land is more of a dignified life. So whenever you talk about human life, it has to be dignified. It is not about merely survival. So whenever we are talking about life on the land, it has not only the survival, it has nothing to do with only survival, but we also talk about a dignified survival of life for every human being, so that they can enjoy their life in a full extent. And then the next one is that VL Vadera versus Union of India. This particular case, you can I will give you the stats of that. Across the globe, we have seen that these issues are not election issues in many of the countries. So what happens is that states are not giving funds to these departments. They are not very active. So what is happening is that many times when the court cases are coming into the court, government is pleading that department is pleading that we don't have funds, we don't have a shortage of employees, we have shortage of employees, so we are not able to take actions on the polluter, we are not able to take actions on the people who are felling the trees in the forest. So this particular law, this particular judgment by the Supreme Court talks that you cannot take plead of the shortage of funds, because these are essential things and these are directly related to a dignified life of a human being. So it is important that you take action at the local level and you prevent a bigger disaster in the coming time. So it is better to take precautionary measures which have been put in place by the law. Next slide. Another one, the judicial response coming from the Supreme Court of India is Arjun Gopal and other versus Union of India. This particular case is very important in the sense that this is directly related to the behavior of the people. So in this particular instance, what was happening is that a fellow went to the Supreme Court asking that people are using crackers. So you must be knowing that we are having a big festival which is called Diwali in India, and we use crackers to celebrate that. So people, large number of people are using crackers in a large number. So that is creating pollution. So many people who are pneumonic, who are facing problems, lung-related diseases, they are not able to, they are not feeling well in that particular time because of pollution in the city, especially in the national capital and bigger cities where population is very high. So in that particular case, this particular case went to the Supreme Court, and this was a letter written by a minor child that he was infected by the lung-related disease, and he wrote the letter to the Supreme Court of India, Judge of Supreme Court of India, mentioning that these are the problems. So why don't you take this case, and why don't you instruct the bureaucracy to take action against the people who are using cracker in these particular times. So in this particular case, Supreme Court responded positively, and they narrated that they have fixed the time, that even if you are celebrating, you cannot have, they have given the window of time. That means 7 to 10 in the night you can celebrate and you can use the cracker. After that you cannot use the cracker. So they have reduced the timing. They are trying to, this is age-old practice, but how they have to put in the regulation in the place, because these are related, these are issues which are very emotional for the community. These are very emotional issue for the religious community. So even in that particular matter, Supreme Court has responded positively, and they have tried to regulate that people use this on a certain occasion only, and now they have given, they have put license in the place. So those who are selling all these materials like crackers, they have to procure license before that, and then only they can sell, and then only it can be on a certain period of time only it can be used by the public at large. And the next case is that Urgenda Foundation versus Netherlands. So this particular case is directly related to the climate change. So we have seen that across the globe, states are evading the responsibility from taking actions on the climate change, or many times they are giving argument that they don't have fund, they don't have control, because states are giving argument that climate change is a very fluid thing. They cannot fix somebody's accountability, because science is not that much advanced in a way that they can fix the responsibility of a single individual or the single corporate who is polluting, or whatever the case may be. So in that particular case, Urgenda Foundation versus Netherlands, Urgenda Foundation in that particular case, which appeared in the District Court of Netherlands, and then it went to the higher court. So this international case gives a ray of hope that how a state has to act on that matter of the climate change. So in this particular case, almost 900 citizens went to the local court, and they asked the state that you have to take actions on the climate change, because all these things are coming, whatever is happening, we are facing the brunt of the climate, the bad impact of the climate change. So a state was telling that we have a limited capacity and we don't have fund to take action. So in that particular case also, it has been narrated by the local court, and later on this particular case went to the higher court also, and it was ratified by the higher court that a state has, as a state is party to the climate change agreement, Paris agreement, and even the SDG. So a state has to take some actions at the municipal level. So whatever we are talking, that Paris agreement as well as the SDG, how it has to be implemented, because these are not the all these things are not binding for the state. That means SDG 15 is not binding. Many states are evading it. They are not taking actions. They are not. They are just giving their reports, and they are participating in the negotiation process. But how we set example by fixing culpability of the state. This was a major challenge in this particular case, and Urgenda Foundation judgment has given a ray of hope for the international agreement like SDG as well as Paris agreement. Next slide. Thank you. I got two questions from the presenter. So from the organizer. So I would like to respond to these two questions. First one is, what policy has been imposed by the Indian government to achieve goal 15? So I would say that there are many policies which have been put in place by the government. So I would not like to take name of every policies, because that would not serve the purpose. But I will give you the basic outline, because as I told you that many issues are at the has to be dealt by the central government, and some of the issues has to be dealt by the provincial government. Whatever goal 15 is covering, just I would like to give you example that life on the water, that means I am talking about wetland, not the coast. I am talking about wetland. So these are largely dealt by the state government. So a state has a separate policy on that, and that policy is applicable in a particular area. That means particular province. Some of the policies which are negotiated and debated at the central level, like national forest policy, national environment policy, national wetland policy, national policy for farmers, national agroforestry policy, green highways, plantation, transportation, beautification and maintenance policy. So all these policies have been put in place to discuss to tackle the situations which are related to goal 15, which talks about life on the land. And the second question which I can see on the screen is that, how does India protect and preserve its natural resources? So India enjoys a federal system with a single constitution at the federal level. So constitution divides the subject matter of the governance in the three parts. First one is called union list, that is dealt directly by the central government. Second one is called state list, directly dealt by the state government. And third one is dealt by the called as concurrent list, that is dealt by both state and provincial government. So whatever policy are there, whatever laws are there, laws are segregated. That means some laws are directly by the federal level. Some states are at the provincial level. So I would give you example that, for example, a disaster management act is at the federal level, and it puts burden on the provinces to put system in a place, and it gives system in a place for the local community also. And for example, we have Environmental Protection Act. So Environmental Protection Act is a central legislation which is passed by the Parliament, that means Supreme Legislative Body of the India. So this particular law is passed by the Parliament, but it has to be implemented by the state, because these matters are in the concurrent list. So both state and central level agencies are involved in implementation of that. So some laws and policies are directly related to the directly passed by the Parliament, that means federal level, and some laws and policies are there at the provincial level. So both type of arrangements are there in India, and a state has an autonomy to act on that. That means when you talk about protection and preservation of the natural resources, so you have a plethora of laws. So for wildlife protection, we have different sets of law. For animal protection, we have different sets of law. We have different sets of law for environmental protection, and all these are federal law. But it has to be backed by the state policy. That means a state level policy has to be incorporated to implement these law at the local level. Thank you for giving the time. Thank you for the opportunity, and I wish good luck to the organizer.
Next, we have Sir Tony Wibowo, S.Kom, M.Msi from Indonesia. He is our lecturer at Universitas Internasional Batam. Sir Tony, time is yours.
Okay, right. So let me share my screen first. My title for this today's seminar is using video game to enhance climate change awareness. Case study of Beyond Blue by myself, Wibowo, S.Kom, M.Msi. I'm a lecturer in UIB and in Information System Department. My research field topic is video game, hence the use of video game in all of my speaking in foreign remarks. But today we're going to speak a very interesting topic, which is using video game to enhance climate change awareness, which is not a usual topic of mine. So let's start with video game first. So video game. So many people said when I'm talking about video game to all the academics or the professional, they think it's a childish thing. It is thing for children. It is a thing for entertainment purpose only. It is a thing for just for the curiosity of youngsters, and then after they go into the professional stage, they will move on from video game to other things in life, such as such as other adult things themes. So the things is basically is an entertainment niche product. Is I agree it is basically the first time it's an entertainment niche product. So at first it is in first inception in the 1970s to 1980s is video game developed just for children and family entertainment, and then it's staged only in the years of 2020, where every business is declined because of corona pandemics, but the game is actually thriving in this environment because everybody stay home and they have nothing else to do. So what they do, they play games. So they grow into multi-billion industry now. And then there also a case of serious game. Not the meaning of the game used a serious story or a case of people who play games seriously. No, a serious game is a term that used to explain the video game developed to serious purposes, such as video game for military purposes, video game for industrial purposes, video game for education purposes. There's such thing like that. And then there's a narrative and emotional video game. So currently, one of the media used to convey narrative perspective and emotional perspective best is normally is conveyed into video into movie or TV series. But nowadays people tend to go to video game because of one simple things that I will explain later. So there are currently a lot of video game that have a very strong narrative point, a very strong narrative perspective, and a very strong emotional standpoint as well. So people used to say that people get emotion to hear some a good piece of art, and then good music, and then a good movie, and then perhaps getting emotional over a novel, something like that. But maybe rarely people getting emotional because of video game. But that is happening right now. Many developers actually develop video games with a strong narrative point and strong emotional video games. And there are a few video game unfair advantages, if you're saying, compared to other media such as I say novels and films and TV series and then songs and then piece of art like a painting or something, or poems perhaps. There are kind of couple of unfair advantages video game. The first one is it is interactive. The first and foremost, video game is interactive. So interactive means that you are interacted with the media itself. So it's not a linear media such as films or TV series where you have absolutely no control whatsoever what the media are going through. You only see what the producer are doing. You only see what the TV will show you if they cut into commercial, and you cannot change to I want to see the movie. But well, with the rising of streaming platform, this is not going to be issue anymore. But still, you have no power or have control whatsoever about the continuity of the media itself. It is also happening with other media. You cannot influence the painting. You cannot influence the running of novels. You cannot influence the running of song. But in video game, you are in control. You in a sandbox, you are in the play box, you can do whatever you want to do. You can continue with the story, you can carry on with the game, you can carry on with whatever you want to do at that point. And then that's the biggest advantage of video game. It is the first and foremost interactive experience. And the second one is a multi-plot experience. So it's rarely happen if you find a movie and then you don't like the movie outcome, and then one more perhaps you have imagined that it can be done differently, it can be done slightly different to have a different outcome. Is it possible? Yes, some cases of multiple movie experience is already experimented recently, but first and foremost, video game already experimented very long time ago. So this video game have a very strong multiple plot experience. So every action, every speech, every decision you make will cater on and then carry you to different kind of plot game, different kind of story, different kind of mechanics. So that's the unfair advantage of video game. And the third one is exploration. Rarely, if you in a media as interactive video game, you are allowed to explore in a certain point of any execution of a media. You can do it in visual art, of course. In the painting, you can explore every ins and outs of the painting. But in a song, the most you can do is slow down and then play back it again. Also in the movie, the best is slow down, pause the video, pause the movie, and then slow down, and then retrace all the element in the view in the screen. But in a video game, you can see almost 360 degree of everything in video game, because you're allowed to explore any nooks and crannies. There's another genre in the video game called open worlds. So open world is basically you in a very big sandbox. So when you play in a sandbox when you're children, you have about 1 meter by 1 meter sandbox, but this time you have about 50 kilometers by 50 kilometers sandbox. So you can do almost anything in that video game. Almost. Well, depends on the content given by the developer, but you can do almost anything. So let's start with serious video game. As mentioned, serious video game, I mean about serious and then also part of the strong narrative points and also a very emotional video game. So I don't know if you have ever heard about this video game before, but I will explain and try in a bit. The first one is cancer awareness. It's a Dead Dragon Cancer. So Dead Dragon Cancer is an indie game that already given award in BAFTA Game Award 2020 because of simple truth. It is a story about parents who have a child get cancer and then dying because of cancer. So the game is actually depicting how the parents give the life of the children the last days of his life in form of Dead Dragon Cancer. So they're playing game like a shooting game. There's a narrative point, and then after the dragon win, the cancer win as well. It is a very emotional video game, a very emotional one. And then there's also a suicide prevention of Missed Message. So Missed Message is another indie video game, only about 2018, if I'm mistaken. It is a very also strong narrative point based on the teenage suicides based in Japan. So it is used to tell you don't need to do suicide because you just need to have a talk with someone else. So it is a very strong idea in the video game as well. And then there's anti-war sentiment, so Undertale. So there's a long history of action video game. People shoot a lot, people punch a lot, people get bleed a lot. But in Undertale, you are actually encouraged to do the opposite. You can play the game without hurting anyone. You just call it giving mercy to all enemies. So the enemies attack you, but you don't do anything, go back, you give mercy. So the game will turn out to be one of the best experience in individual game at that time. It is they won a Game of the Year. They not won, but nominated to become Game of the Year, and it is one of the very strong game example that show anti-war sentiments. And then also mental health awareness. This is a game for girls actually, for women who experience about anxiety disorder. So Greece is a musical video game. So depicting how women grow from children, from teenagers to experience the global, and then afraid to go into the adult society. It is also a very good game. And then children on divorce, childlike. So have you imagined what happened to children when their parent divorces? So childlike depicting just like that. So children drop into a bottom of the well, and then they must fight for themselves to go into the light again. It is a very also a strong point of video game and narrative strong point. And then anxiety disorder with Celeste and so on and so forth. So as I mentioned, there are a lot of video game based on the very serious and narrative strong point. And then racism and sexism that become human. So this come from a lot of video game, come from indie game, from AAA studio, from Indonesia. There's also game called Dread Out as well. So there's a very various video game depicting a serious topic. So let's go back to the today's subject about the Beyond Blue. Beyond Blue, well, let me show you the video so you can see the difference between this a video game or not.
Sir, maybe you can include your audio system first.
Okay. So Beyond Blue is basically a video game depicting a marine biologist who go into the sea to learn about whales, blue whales. So in one plot of the game, so there's a oil company. There's always an oil company there, and then who drill too much into the oil deposits, and after that to incite a volcanic activity in the sea. So the volcanic activity actually disrupt the whales activity and also the gaming experience. So you can see from the very beautiful place turn into a very murky water. The whales is nowhere to be seen, and then the players actually fighting to change of that. So in the end, you can choose to leave the waters for good, or you can help with the cleaner water. So the idea of being of this video game is not only to tell about the beauty of sea, but also what happened in the sea that not many people able to see before. You see, when we're talking about climate changes, people always tend to see what above sea level. So people see the decline of farming, and then the temperature getting higher, and so on and so forth, and then more difficult to live in urban city, more difficult to live in in the society and so on and so forth, because it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter. But people do not realize that it is happen in the sea as well. So when the sea beds, when the North Pole and South Pole getting meltdown, the first who get impacted is by the sea, of course. But many people don't see it happens. Many people see it happen because it is rarely seen. You don't go into the sea just to filming what happened with the sea. But in video game, you can actually do that because every video is simulated, but based on the truth. That the climate change in the above sea level is also affecting below sea level, and you see that things in sea is beautiful, but after climate change, not so much visible anymore. So how can video game like Beyond Blue helping people to aware about the climate change to enhance the message of climate change awareness better? Because they have two things: the experience and immersive. So in the case of every human beings who do have empathy of a empath about something else, but experience the something is very different. For example, if you never go to see war, you can really truly empath about how the victim of war before. But if you see the horror of war yourself, you getting more engaged and no understanding what the war victim are feeling about. Similar with this, if you do not feel effect of this climate change yourself, you tend to dismiss the idea. You tend to think it is a hoax. You think it is things of a distant future. But it is happening. The temperature is getting higher and higher, and then also the environment is getting ruiner. So if you don't see it yourself, you don't experience it. But if you experience it, even in simulated area, simulated in video games such as, it is helping you to aware that it is happening. It is happening. And then the other idea is immersive. Immersive means that you are actually feel that you are is a player. You are there. You are feeling, you are seeing, and you are looking at what the player also looking at. And that's the immersive area. The rise of VR, the Beyond Blue also viable in virtual reality. So it is helping that people actually see what's look like. So that's how video game can help. The idea of selling the message is to experience the message and then immersive the experience. Okay, so the conclusion of today's papers is speaks is about video game can be used to convey serious messages, not only climate changes, but because today we're talking about SDG, so of course we're going to talk about climate changes, but also every other SDG out there, every other issue out there can be conveyed through video game. And I have seen a lot of examples doing that also. And then in case of Beyond Blue, it can enhance the climate change awareness with its immersive experience. And especially effective for millennials, because in the future, who will lead this world? It will be the millennials, of course. We are getting old and we are no longer, well, we still managed to lead something, but the real deal will be in the next generation. And if the next generation only care about music, only care about rock and roll, only care about dubstep or something like that, and video game, so why don't let them, why don't make the video game to actually enhance their awareness about climate change? And then the needs of developer to put serious message to their player. So video games developer tends to develop a long time of period. So a long video game actually depicting a very serious message to their player as well. Another notable is Horizon Zero Dawn, people who already fail and then extinct, and then how do they going back again as a 0 point. So it is a very interesting idea. So developers need to keep up with the serious message of player. But the idea of video developer to put serious message is kind of difficult because of one thing, the rise of mobile generation. Mobile generation and mobile gaming generation is another issue in video game that I will address in another chances and opportunity. But there's a problem in our in video game industry. This is rising go into the mobile gaming because mobile gaming takes to less time and more profitable. Well, who don't say no to that? And the last one is video game is no longer just for entertainment purposes, and it is the media can be used to deliver positive messages. So that's all to say. So thank you for the today's chance. So I will address now the two question that we gather by the committee to ask to me. That the first one is how do you reduce CO2 emission in the future? So that's another is especially in the in Industrial Revolution 4.0. Okay, that is not my kind of cup of tea, but I will try to answer that. So how can we drop the CO2 emission in the era of Industrial Revolution 4.0? The question is, the idea is, what is Industrial Revolution 4.0? Industrial Revolution 4.0 is the usage of smart technology. And smart technology do not rely on CO2 emission. They do not rely on fossil fuel. They rely on smart electricity. They rely on smart technology. So the rise of Industrial Revolution 4.0 will actually drop the CO2 emission because that is what it's supposed to do. If industry somehow just say they say we already adopt Industrial Revolution 4.0 for full. Okay, so what will happen to that? Simple. They will drop the CO2 emission. If they do not drop the CO2 emission, it means that they do not actually adopt Industrial Revolution 4.0 yet. And then the second one is what action can be done by students to educate public about climate changes. Well, there's a lot. That's a lot. Contrary to people said that student job is to learning only. There's actually a lot of play the student can be done because student nowadays is influence a lot more than what we used to. So when we are young, we only place is to learn. But today, the student can do a lot of things. They can develop strong messages through social media. They can they can make a short movie. They can make an animation. They can make. I've seen some animation there. Also depicting a very serious change about climate change there. So, and also making video games there. So, as you know that my faculty is now focusing on making animation and video games. So, yeah, we'll see about that. So, students who make video game or animation doing about climate change. So. I think that's all about it. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for all to listen to my speaks about video game about climate change today. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Sir Tony Wibowo, S.Kom M.Msi for the explanation. Next we have Ramalina, Ranaivo, Manitra.
Okay, so good morning everyone. My name is Manitra. I'm from Madagascar and I'm currently living in Indonesia. So yeah, today I'm gonna talk about SDG 13 and climate action. Yeah. So yeah, before we're gonna focus especially on Madagascar's case, I will give you an essential overview about climate change and SDG 13 in general. Yeah, so the title of my presentation today is The Fight Against Climate Change in Madagascar, yeah, a will to do in lack of means. Next slide, please. Yeah, climate change is a long-term shift in weather conditions identified by changes in temperature, precipitation, wind, and other indicators. Yeah, the average global temperature increased about 0.85 degrees Celsius of its current amount of 1882 to 2012. The planet is experiencing an incessant rise of temperature. Sorry. Yeah. The planet is experiencing an incessant rise in temperature, starting from warming of a part of the globe to the entire terrestrial globe. Yeah, and the consequences can be only naughty. They have become a fact and a major problem for humanity. Many oceans have warmed, sea levels have risen, and some snow and ice layers have melted. The victims of those problems continue to increase in number, human as animals, land as plant. All without exception are suffering the disastrous consequences of climate change. Yeah, unfortunately, the polluting activities of men only make the situation worse, such that even according to the UN, it's likely by the end of this century, global temperature will be greater than 1.5 degrees Celsius, its current amount. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is why one of the Sustainable Development Goals has been dedicated to the fight against climate change, namely SDG 13, climate action. Yeah, so SDG 13, on the other hand, yeah, includes targets to be achieved. The most notable of them are strengthening resilience and adaptive capacity to climate-related disasters, integrating climate change measures into policies and planning, and building knowledge and capacity to deal with climate change. Yeah, these targets are adopted and applied in different ways by the adhering countries for a common fight. Yeah, a fight against climate change. So, next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. So now that you have acquired the basics about climate change and SDG 13, yeah, let's focus on Madagascar's case. Yeah, Sustainable Development Goals is officially adopted by 193 countries, including Madagascar. And since our topic today is SDG 13, climate action, what is Madagascar's position in relation to this fight against climate change? Yeah, so how Madagascar contribute in the fight against climate change? Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, but first of all, let me give you some important details about my beautiful country, Madagascar. Yeah, Madagascar, otherwise known as the Big Island, now stated as the Republic of Madagascar, lies on the east coast of Africa, separated at 400 kilometers by the Mozambique Channel. It has a total area of approximately 580,000 square kilometers, for a population of over 26 million, according to the census in 2018. The official languages are Madagascar and French, and the country became independent on June 26, 1960. Yeah, it is a country rich in biodiversity and has an abundance of endemic flora and fauna, such as lemurs. I think you've already heard about it, and the famous baobab of Madagascar. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah, but however, yeah, this treasure of natural resources is strongly threatened by the destructive effects of climate change, and Madagascar is considered one of the most vulnerable countries. Yeah, Madagascar's vulnerability to climate change is no longer to be said, but to be seen nowadays. This results in a significant increase in the rate of CO2 emissions, which lead to an unstoppable heating of the Big Island. Yeah, next slide, please. So what are the causes of climate change in Madagascar? Yeah, the causes of climate change in common with the majority of affected countries around the world. Yeah, so there are causes that is in common. So smoke from factories, car exhaust, which I think is every country's problem. Stacked garbage, yeah, which is the main problem in Madagascar, especially in the capital city, which is really pollute in the air. Use of charcoal, a traditional behavior in Madagascar, like that is really destroying the atmosphere, and overcrowding in the capital city. Next slide, please. Yeah, but the main cause of climate change in Madagascar is deforestation. So much that, according to the Global Forest Watch in 2017, Madagascar ranks 4th country in terms of deforestation, with 510,000 hectares destroyed in 1 year. Yeah, that means the disappearance of 3.8% of forest in Madagascar. So, next slide. So what are the impacts of climate change in Madagascar? Yeah, due to this excessive deforestation and the other causes mentioned before, yeah, the greenhouse effect continues to amplify and result in an increase in the emission of CO2 in the atmosphere. Yeah, as shown in the data from the World Bank collection of development indicators, Madagascar has already reached 0.60 metric ton per capita in 2016. And the impact that this has on the big island are so destructive that Madagascar's economy and environment are the first to be most affected. Yeah, as you can see here, yeah, cyclones are becoming more and more violent and devastating, leaving behind tons of damage, such as destruction of plantations, houses, infrastructures, etc. And the duration of droughts continues to lengthen. Their intensity gains more and more power. This puts agriculture in Madagascar in really unfavorable conditions, which lead to a drop in agriculture production rates, which leads us to another major problem in the country: malnutrition. And as implausible as it may seem, climate change is the main cause of this silent yet deadly disease called malnutrition in Madagascar, affecting almost 47% of children under 5. Yeah. Not to mention that the biodiversity riches, which are supposed to be the value of the big island, are also threatened. For example, lemurs are losing their natural habitat. Yeah, so we can say that far or near, the impacts of climate change are very harmful to Madagascar. The next slide, please. Yeah, however, the Malagasy government does not remain a spectator in the fight, in the face of this great problem. Yeah, the Ministry of Environment and Forests has implemented the national policy of against climate change. The national policy of against climate change aims at a few points, which are strengthening adaptation actions to climate change, taking into account the real needs of the country. The second one, implementation of mitigation actions for the benefit of the country's development, mainstreaming climate change at all levels, development and sustainable financing instruments, and the promotion of research, development, and transfer of technologies in the adaptative management. Yeah, and the strategies for implementing this policy is based on 6 principles, as you can see here. Principle of participation, principle of proximity, principle of polluter country pays, and principle of accountability at all levels, principle of precaution, and the principle of transparency. Next slide, please. Yeah, so indeed, initiatives have already been taken by the government in this fight, but those ones are only passive force if they're not applied. So what is already, yeah, okay. The 3 points that we're gonna see here. Yeah, so indeed, yeah, initiatives have already been taken by the government, yeah, but the ones are only passive force if they're not applied. So what is already and or being done? Maybe you're asking yourself why I choose to use and or, yeah, because since we are in a fight that it's still in its course, any actions already finished or in the process of being finished must be taken into account because even the smallest action can make a difference. Yeah, the 3 points that we're gonna see here are the most recent and remarkable actions in the fight against climate change, which means that many more have been taken before, but for today we'll just take those 3 ones as concrete examples. Yeah, the first one, as you can see here, is the 2020 reforestation campaign, an action recently started by the government in place in Madagascar. Yeah, the Madagascar authorities have set a target of reforestation of 60 million trees planting for the 60 years of the country's independence. Yeah, the progress of this large-scale reforestation can be counted in percentage, and Madagascar is still in its beginning. A promising solution that relies on the future development of the young plains scattered throughout the island. Next slide, please. So in this fight against climate change, planting trees is important, but not cutting trees is also essential. Yeah, the use of charcoal constitutes a major problem in the disappearance of forests in Madagascar. Yeah, this is why our second point focuses on the use of green coals. In this case, we will take the example of Wibowo, a revolutionary project undertaken by the company Satamima SA. Yeah, this company is a company working in development of an energy similar to charcoal, which is ecological charcoal. Yeah, unlike traditional charcoal, which is the main cause of deforestation, ecological charcoal called Wibowo reduces this cutting of wood by its composition. And even if we solve the problem of climate change in Madagascar, it is a solution which at least serves as a shock absorber with little result but effective. Next slide, please. And finally, it is impossible for us to forget NGO, national offices, and all institutions working to fight against climate change. And yes, yeah, there are many in Madagascar, but the one that has expanded its area of activity regionally is the National Office for Climate Change, Carbon and Reduction of Emission from Deforestation and the Forest Degradation, or yeah, it's in French, so BNCREDD, Bureau National de Coordination REDD plus. Yeah, their work in each region is characterized by the achievement of the following 3 objectives: strengthening the capacities of rural development instructions on the management of risks linked to climate change, support for production and dissemination of agrometeorological information, support technology transfer and adaptation measures to climate change. Yeah, they established several projects such as the anti-Alansanana emission reduction program and operate in full close interaction with the population. That's what makes them different. Ian, next slide, please. Yeah, but despite all those great solutions, the problem of climate change are still a reality in Madagascar. So you're probably wondering, like me here, why the problem of climate change persists in Madagascar. So yeah, firstly, the solution offered are not within everyone's reach. Yeah, so we are witnessing here a financial and material problem. The maintenance of plants as well as the use of ecological energies requires strength and money, like gas cylinder price that many people still complain about its price. It's not affordable to everyone. So people prefer to devote their money and strength in maintaining their survival and well-being, an act that is not at all blameworthy because the majority of population still is in poverty. Next slide, please. Singly, it is the problem of unity and solidarity. Yeah, the climate change is a problem that concerns everyone, right? But it's not everyone who tries to solve this problem. More explicitly spoken, yeah, this is an example. The area of awareness for the fight against climate change is still insufficient, and as an illustration, In a reforestation project of 10,000 trees, only a quarter of the population takes part, which brings to a slowdown in the progress of reforestation. Next slide, please. Yeah, and the last one, finally, yeah, trees have become a source of income for the population. Yeah, because of this excessive poverty, the local population came to live from the sale of precious wood, sale of trees in Madagascar. So finding themselves tempted by illegal foreign buyers, people cut down thousands of valuable trees, such as rosewood. Yeah, this is the most like frequent case in Madagascar, to resell them at a price which is 100 times cheaper than their actual price. Unlike that, which is not like which save them from spending money in the maintenance of these trees, but also give them miserable income, but enough to survive. Yeah, that's the environmental problem of Madagascar. That's what you can say, cannot be dissociated from the financial and material problems of the population, problems that become an obstacle to the resolution of the other problem. Next slide, please. So what new, more effective and efficient solutions should detect overcome climate change in Madagascar? Yeah. On the one hand, we must continue the actions which have already give good results, such as not smoking in public spaces by creating stricter non-smoking zones, not throwing rubbish everywhere by mobilizing more effectively the meaning tracks of each municipality, moving factories away from big cities while implementing a more detailed and more severe control of factories on the social, environmental, and health level. Using ecological energy such as turbo, as I mentioned, and gas also, frequently checking and maintaining means of transportation in good condition, and above all, yeah, because I believe in this, I have faith in this project, the 2020 reforestation campaign, which is once again, I repeat, a promising project for green future in Madagascar. It should be noted that, yeah, these actions are more classic than specific. Yeah, that is why they are similar to the usual awareness rising in the world. But here, next slide, please. Yeah, since the Madagascar's case has two inseparable problems, environmental and financial problem, we need solutions with double simultaneous effect on the environment and on the economy. First, the government should contribute to the reduction of the price of ecological energies like gas or turbo by finding a compromise with the producing companies. Yeah, the next one is the government must establish a remunerative counterpart for Deforestation Act in the most disadvantaged regions. Yeah, so to give an explanation, yeah, they can work for reforestation or environmental protection without worrying too much about finding their daily needs. A solution which we will make it possible to preserve the environment while ensuring the daily life of the people. Yeah, then a group of people who are doing climate change awareness actions should be trained to make synchronization in the mention of environmental and financial problem of the people concerned. Yeah, that's people will be easier to direct when their problems are also concerned, right? Yeah. Without forgetting that the area of influence of awareness rising against climate change should be widened, extended, because the more we manage to encourage people, the more hand we will get for reforestation. And also we must convey to the population that the concept of reforestation is more an act of compulsory than a voluntary act. Yeah, because in this serious situation, if people does not aware by themselves, we have to wake them up. Yeah, we have to wake them up, us. And finally, the government should compete with incomes generated by illegal buyers of shares, So the illegal buyers pay people to cut trees. That's the problem, right? Yeah. So the government should also pay people to plant trees and to protect trees. So there is a kind of competition between the illegal foreign buyers and the government. So this will lead to a decrease in the illegal logging to the detriment of the protection, yeah, illegal cutting of trees. Next slide, please. Yeah, so in conclusion, climate change is a serious problem that threatens the future of humanity in the decades to come. And as it is a realization to the fact that the climate change is an international scale. And Madagascar, like many developing countries, finds itself in a difficult situation between solving the country's financial and environmental problems. Thus, a system of mutual aid at all levels must be established, both national and international, to assure a common result for the fight against climate change. Next slide, please. Yeah, so we are in a struggle. Yeah, the fight against climate change, we are in the same problem, but other countries are doing better than other countries. Like other regions of the same countries are doing better than other regions. So we have to help each other, yeah, internationally and nationally, so that the fight against climate change will be within the reach of all. Yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for listening to the end.
Thank you so much, Manitra. And next we have a question from participant that we collect beforehand. Maybe you can answer it. Okay, we will share the screen about the question for you.
Okay, so let me see the question. Yeah. What can people of the world do to stop climate change? Yeah, so to answer this question, yeah, I'm gonna assure you first that human activities are the main cause of climate change, yeah, because if they're not the first factor, according to the science of climate change, question answers that was prepared by a working group of 9 members co-chaired by Dr. Ignatius, AAA, and Professor Mike Rawpatch, AAA, TSE, or Shahrullah Academy of Science. Yeah, and aside, human activities have increased the greenhouse gas concentration in the atmosphere. Since the 19th century, human-induced CO2 emissions from fossil fuel combustion, cement manufacture, and deforestation have disturbed the balance in CO2 to the atmosphere faster than it can be taken up by the landed biosphere and the oceans. Yeah, so from what I said before, reducing the CO2 emissions in the air is the most urgent action that all people of the world should do. Because and here when we talk about people, it's everyone in general, yeah. And each person can have its own position, identity, status. For example, simple citizen, government, family. Still, everyone has to bring their contribution in this fight against climate change. And yeah, I will give you some examples, yeah, to make it more concrete. As an individual, we can power our homes with renewable energy, such as solar energy, wind energy, tidal energy, geothermal energy, biomass energy. Yeah, so we don't use the natural energy like spend the riches of the earth. Yeah, we can invest in energy efficient appliances also. And as a government, we can increase the capacity of electricity production, promote green energy, and combat the short-lived climate pollutants. And even as a family, as I tell you, like everyone is concerned, we can eat more meals without meat, buy organic and local food as much as possible, and most importantly, not waste food. Yeah. So we see here that everyone is concerned and can make a contribution in this fight. But most importantly, it's about responsibility, right? Yeah, we have to take our responsibility. And finally, to make a relation with what I said in my PPT, those solutions are not yet within everyone's reach. So countries like Iceland, Norway, Germany, Canada, North Korea, which are doing great in the application of these perspectives against climate change, should help the older, not capable countries by creating massive actions, but also global actions, so that the fight against climate change can be solved globally and not only in a part of the globe. Yeah, that's it. The second question is, what is the best campaign on climate change in Madagascar? Okay, so the next question, yeah, what is the best campaign on climate change in Madagascar? According to the Conservation International Madagascar, stopping deforestation would lead to a 20% reduction in the amount of greenhouse gases in the time. So from that, the best campaign on climate change in Madagascar is the one who promotes reforestation. However, there isn't really a better climate change fight against climate change campaign, as long as the results are more or less similar. Yeah, so yeah, I've already talked about the 2020 reforestation campaign, which is very promising, a recent campaign and currently undertaken by the government. But yeah, another example, there is the Synergy Energy Project Environment in the Southwest, SEEO, has given remarkable promising results. So SEEO is a project of 3 campaigns carried out by the Centre National Industrial and Technological Research, CNRIT, funded by the European Union under the Energy Facility Initiative. Yeah. These campaigns have contributed to an awareness of communities on the value of forests, as well as reduction in the spread of fire bush, yeah, which is a main problem in Madagascar. And the last example, we will talk about the Antienieni Zahamena Corridor Biodiversity Conservation Project, started in 2007. It is a project which does not directly aim at reforestation, but yeah, the preservation and the protection of forests to reduce forest fragmentation and to promote alternative livelihoods for poor communities. Even that, according to the data from World Bank, yeah, because this project was continued, was from 2012 and was continued until now. Yeah, we see an improving in the CO2 emissions in Madagascar, which is 0.14 metric tons per capita in 2013 and decrease in 0.13 metric ton per capita in 2014. I hope I could answer all your question well. Yeah, that's it.
We have Dr. Beumhoo Jang from South Korea. This is the profile of Dr. Beumhoo Jang. He will present the goal of 12. Okay, Prof, time is yours.
Okay, so before starting my presentation, firstly, thanks for giving this great opportunity to present this meaningful issue for today, and especially Professor and Secretary of International University of Batam. And I really glad to see you, Professor and Secretary, and all participants here. Okay, so let me start my presentation. Okay, so today I'm Beumhoo Jang from South Korea, and today I'm going to talk about responsible consumption and production in Korea. And I hope you will enjoy my presentation, and I hope you will take something from my presentation. Next slide, please. Okay, so let me start with overview. So firstly, today I'm going to talk about background of adoption of UN SDGs, including details of Goal 12 of UN SDGs. And then I will talk about introduction of Korean SDGs and details of the Goal 12 of Korean SDGs. After that, I will also talk about related laws of sustainable development in Korea. And finally, I will talk about current and future challenges for sustainable development in Korea. Next one, please. Okay, first one is about adoption of UN SDGs. And actually, after the Millennium Development Goals was done in 2015, the 193 UN member states unanimously adopted Sustainable Development Goals, which is called SDGs, at UN Summit meeting in September 2015 in order to achieve better and more sustainable future for all of us. And the SDGs was adopted by states for people, planet, and prosperity, and peace and partnership. And under this, there are 17 goals and 169 targets and 232 indicators in the social, economic, and environmental sectors. So there are 3 dimensions for 17 goals of the UN SDGs, and goal 1 to goal 6 are about social development for solving poverty and inequality issues and recovering human dignity. And goal 8 to goal 11 are about economic growth for building comprehensive economic circumstance and sustainable development engine. And goal 7 and goals 12 to 15 are about environmental conservation for planet Earth. Next one, please. Okay, so let me talk about detail of goal 12 of UN SDGs, which is about ensuring sustainable consumption and production patterns. Purpose of goal 20 is to minimize waste and contamination in the process of consumption and production. And here, actually, the definition of sustainable consumption and production is to increase the resource and energy efficiency and expand sustainable infrastructure and allow everyone to enjoy high quality of their life. And you may easily find the details of this goal 12 of UN SDGs. Okay, next slide, please. And next one, please. Okay, so now let me move to introduction of Korean SDGs. The background of setting up Korean SDGs, in spite of remarkable economic growth in Korea, quality of life for people has not improved as much as the development. So as a result, the Korea's rank of the OECD Better Life Index was kind of relatively low, like the 29th among 38 member nations. And so there are still in the polarization and environmental degradation and worsening fine dust and lack of quality jobs in Korea. And in 2018, Korean government adopted SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, as a national agenda. And the Commission on Sustainable Development, which is actually an executive body under the Ministry of Environment for National Sustainable Development, set up the Korean Sustainable Development Goals, which is called KSDGs, in 2018. And actually, as you can see, the Korean government, the KSDGs were made based mainly on UN SDGs, but some details of KSDGs are different from some details of UN SDGs, because Korea had to consider Korea's unique situation and circumstances. So that's why there are some difference the details between the UN SDGs and Korean SDGs. Next one, please. And there is the vision of Korean SDGs, which is about a sustainable nation that embraces all. And in order to achieve this vision of KSDGs, there are 17 goals under 5 strategies. And here are 5 strategies on the screen. And first one is the human. And under this, what we pursue is that everyone can live like a human being in a society. And second strategy is a global environment. And under this, what we pursue is that current and future generations can enjoy clean environment. And third one is prosperity. And under this, we pursue economic growth that enhances people's quality of life. And fourth strategy is peace, and under this we also pursue protection of human rights and inter-Korean peace. And the last strategy is partnership, and under this we pursue development or enhancement of global cooperation. And next one, please. Okay, so there are 17 detailed goals under 5 strategies. Under the first strategy, humans, there are 5 goals. First one is poverty reduction and strengthen the social protection system. And the second one is the goal is food security and sustainable agriculture. And next is healthy and happy lives. And fourth one is promotion of education. And the fifth one is inclusive, safe and resilient cities and settlement. And the second strategy, global environment. Under this, there are five goals. And first is the sound and safe water management. And second is the eco-friendly production and consumption of energy. And third one is response to climate change. And fourth one is the conservation of marine ecosystem and conservation of territorial ecosystems. And third strategy is prosperity, and under this there are 3 goals. And first goal is expansion of quality jobs and economic growth. And the second is the establishment of infrastructure and research and development, expansion and economic development. And the third one is the sustainable consumption and production. And fourth strategy is peace. And under the peace, there are 3 goals. First one is gender equality, and second one is reduction of inequality. And third one is human rights and justice and equality. And the last strategy is partnership, and under this there are only 1 goal, which is enhanced global partnership. Next, please. Okay, so now let me talk about establishment system of Korean SDGs. The establishment of KSDG was performed in a bottom-up manner with a participation of relevant ministries, about 23 ministries and private working groups, and more than 400 experts and stakeholders and the general publics from the more than 14 different sectors in our society. And inter-ministerial committee and joint working group of private, public, and academic sectors, Korea major groups, and other stakeholders were established to make the establishment process of KSDGs. Actually, this is kind of opposite to general process of making policies by government. I'm not sure about other countries, but maybe many countries also take the top-to-down approach. So what is the top-down approach? So when government when government prepares some policies or some plan, the government proactively make the policy without having regional or national debates. So government just prepare the plans and policy, and then they just implement the policy or plan. And the citizen, individual companies need to follow the policies. But if there is some problematic issue, the government needs to revise the plan. This is the explanation of a top-down approach. But the process of establishing KSDGs, there is the bottom-up manner. So it means that the citizen, individual companies, expert, jointly make the content of the SDGs in Korea, and then they report this one to government, and the government approve this. So this is a little different way of the process of establishing KSDGs. Okay, so after regional and national debates for KSDGs, the KSDGs were officially launched through deliberation at a cabinet meeting in December 2018. Next one, please. Okay, let me talk about details of KSDGs, Goal 12 of KSDGs, which is about promoting sustainable and production. First one is establishing and carrying out policies for sustainable consumption and production, as you are missing on the sustainable. And the second one is sustainable management and efficient use of resources. And third one is reducing losses from the life cycle of food. And fourth one is environment-friendly management of chemicals and hazardous waste. And fifth is reducing waste generation. And sixth is managing business sustainable management activities. And seventh is certifying and promoting green products. And eighth is expanding environmental education to raise awareness of sustainable development. And ninth is building a system for plastic virtuous cycle. And 10th is developing sustainable tourism index. And 11th is gradual elimination of fossil fuel subsidies. Next one, please. Okay, now let me introduce two case studies for detail 6 of goal 12 of KSDGs. So detail 6 of goal 12 of KSDGs were about how big company try to reduce waste in Korea. Okay, so first case from Starbucks Korea. And I think since November 2018, Starbucks Korea started to provide the paper straw rather than the plastic straw in order to reduce use of plastic. And regarding this, although many customers complain that paper straw degrades the coffee flavors, Starbucks Korea still keeps providing paper straws for conservation of environment by reducing use of plastic. And with this Starbucks Korea's action, the customers and other companies can also consider participating in the action to conserve the environment. And second case study from LG Electronics, which is global manufacturer for electronics like television. And the LG Electronics has been promoting the greenhouse gas reduction policy. And in 2014, the LG Electronics reduced 18.4 tons of greenhouse gas compared to year of 2008. And by 2020, the company aims to minimize waste discharged by targeting 90% of companies' recycling rate. In addition, LG Electronics provides a collection service for waste home appliance to pursue the sustainability of the entire product cycle. In 2017, the LG Electronics collected more than 2 million tons of home appliances and will continue to collect 4.5 million tons of home appliances by this year, by 2020. And these are how big companies in Korea reduce waste, and these big companies' action can be role model for others, maybe individuals and for companies in our society. And next one, please. Okay, now let me move to the related laws of sustainable development in Korea. So today I'm just going to talk about only major three act for sustainable development in Korea. And first one is about the Framework Act on Low Carbon Growth, Green Growth, which was enacted in 2010. And actually, this act is the superior act for sustainable development in Korea. And purpose of this act is to promote the development of national economy by laying the foundation necessary for low carbon green growth and by utilizing green technology and green industries as new growth engines, so as to pursue the harmonized development of the economy and environment. Also, the purpose of this act is to contribute to the improvement of the quality of life of every citizen and take up major tackles and advance the country that shall fulfill its responsibility in international society through the realization of low carbon society. And regarding main contents, this act covered a fundamental principle for the promotion of green growth and several policies of green growth. Also, this act stipulates the organization and operation of the Commission on Green Growth. And especially pursuant to Article 50 of this Framework Act on Low Carbon Green Growth, Korean government entity should establish and implement a basic plan for sustainable development every 5 years for the 20-year planning period to implement international agreements on sustainable development and promote sustainable development of a country. Next one, please. And the second act is the Sustainable Development Act, which was enacted in 2007. And purpose of this act is to ensure that the current and future generation can enjoy better quality of life. And regarding main content, this act includes the basic strategies for sustainable development and evaluation, sustainability and organization and operation of the Commission of Sustainable Development. And with this, under this act, actually the pursuant to Article 13 and 14 of this act, the government should prepare and distribute a Sustainable Development Index, and the Commission on Sustainable Development should evaluate national sustainability every 2 years. And next one, please. And this is the last act for the sustainable development in Korea that I'm explaining today. The Framework Act on Resources Circulation, which was enacted in 2016. And as you can see, the title of this act, the Framework Act on Resources Circulation, this is very closely related to achievement of Goal 12 of UN SDGs as well as the KSDGs. And purpose of this act is to prescribe basic matters necessary for preserving the environment and creating the sustainable resource circulating society. And main content of this act is that the fundamental principles of resources circulation and the formulation and implementation of master plans for resources circulation and policies for promoting resources circulation. Also, this act stipulates the responsibilities of government entity and business entities and individuals. And as this act stipulates main principles for reducing rates on waste generated and raising rates on recycling, this act is essential actually for the goal 12 of UN SDGs to be implemented in Korea. Actually, under this act, the first basic plan for resource circulation was prepared and implemented in order to achieve the goal 12 of UN SDGs. Next one, please. And this is the last one for my presentation. And there are current and future challenges for sustainable development in Korea. As you can see, first problematic issue is that there is the duplicated regulation for the business operators. So, as several acts stipulate requirement on same matter, with this same matter, so business operators are exposed to comply with the duplicated regulation from several acts, which means that there is duplicated regulation on business operators. So this may make the business operators confused to comply with several requirements by the several acts. And this is the first problematic issue. And the second problematic issue is lack of awareness to improve the consumption habit. And actually, this is also very important as much as the principle or the principle or this kind of act for sustainable development, because this lack of awareness of improving consumption habit is important as much as the policies prepared by government, and the lack of the awareness to improve consumption habit is very important because individuals and companies still have little awareness to improve consumption habits, such as reduction of food waste and general waste in Korea. So I think this is very important because without having enough sufficient awareness to improve this kind of consumption habit, is I think almost impossible to save our planet. So this second problematic issue is also very important. So these are the current and future challenges for sustainable development in Korea, and I hope this problematic issue should be resolved as soon as possible. And actually, this is the end of my presentation, and I will be ready to answer the questions. Okay, thank you. And there are two questions for my presentation. And first one is, what are the roles of Korean government in achieving the goal 12 of sustainable development goals? Actually, as I the answer for first question. So as I explained, one of the act for sustainable development in Korea, the Framework Act on Resources Circulation, under the Framework Act on Resource Circulation, the Ministry of Environment and other ministries jointly prepared the first basic plan for resource circulations in Korea. And this basic plan is maybe 10-year national strategies for efficient use of resource and the control of waste generation and promotion of circular use of waste generated. And this basic plan is to reduce waste generation by 20% compared to Korea's GDP by 2027, and to improve the recycling rate to 82% by 2027. Because as I said, the Ministry of Environment and other ministries jointly prepared the basic plan for resource circulation and for 10 years. So they prepared this basic plan in 2018. So for 10 years, by the 2027, they needed to implement this basic plan. And I think with this implementation of the first basic plan of resource circulation, Korean government can achieve the goal 12 of the UN SDGs as well as Korean SDGs. And regarding the second question, how people in Korea reduce food waste, and actually this is very short answer will be ready. Okay, so in Korea, actually in Korea, I'm not sure about other policies in other countries, but in Korea, I think Korea has a unique strategy to reduce food waste generated. In Korea, each local government or municipality each local government has discretion, like the power to mandate citizens either to purchase the food waste collection bag or to pay the process fee charged based on weight of food waste generated. And these two ways provide very strong incentive for Korean people to generate less food waste. And I think this would be answer for second question. And this is the end of my presentation, including the answer for questions. And I hope you have enjoyed and taken something from my presentation. Thank you for listening to my presentation.
Once again, thank you to Dr. Beumhoo Jang for the presentation and answer the question. Next, we have Dr. Oda Ignatius Besar Hariyanto. He is our lecturer from Universitas Internasional Batam at Tourism Program Study, and also hold doctoral from Universitas Pajajaran. To Dr. Oda, time is yours.
Okay, good morning. I will introduce my nickname is Oda. I am a lecturer at Tourism Program in UIV. I will introduce my research. The topic is the diversification of various processed mango products with economic value as souvenir from the tourist village of Sembulang, Batam in Indonesia. Here is the overview of Sembulang village. Location Sembulang village is Galang sub-district. It is 75 kilometers from Batam city. Batam city is one of the island in Rio Island in Sumatra. The people of Sembulang village consists of male 56.50% and female 43.40%. 0.50% dominated by male. The livelihood is dominate as coconut farmer, entrepreneurship, and fishermen. Sembolang village was inaugurated as a tourism village by the Ministry of Tourism in March 2020. Sembolang village, and last, we know that Sembolang village has other potential that is mango, but unfortunately, it evolves yet as a source to be an economic value. The next slide. Sustainable tourism with the relation between tourism village and the university. When we talk about sustainable tourism, it will be related to the development and growth of destination. It should consist of three sustainable aspects. Namely, the first is environment. Development is ground of tourism destination should maintain ecological sustainability and preserve biodiversity. The second is social culture. Development and growth of tourism destinations should respect and tolerate the main culture as well as preserve the local culture heritage. The third is economical. Development and growth of tourism destinations should support the economic for all stakeholders who are involved, especially for the welfare of society and to the reduce poverty. These three aspects should function in balance to ensure the sustainability of tourism development and growth. Furthermore, how the relationship between tourism village and the university, based on the law of educational system in Indonesia, number 20/2003, university carries out the obligation of three dharma, that is teaching and educational, research, and community development. Through the research and community development tourism undergraduate program, the student also scientists and experts do the research and give solution to the community, initially by diversifying mango to have economic value. Finally, we process mango into various products to add economic value to the mango. So, what the problems? The first is no economic value for the mango. The second, need an innovative approach to process mango. And the last, the impact of pandemic COVID-19 decreased tourism village to visiting. Here is the characteristics of mango sembolang. Firstly, the mango shape look like apple and with the big seed. Secondly, the raw mango is saucer than mango in general. Thirdly, the red mango is orange for color but a lot of fiber, coarse and hard to eat. Based on the characteristic, innovative strategy is needed to process the mango in order to have economic value. The problem should be solved. How to process mango to be dried mango sweet? There are 14 steps. The first step is sorting. Select the mango based on the level of maturity. Raw mango are for dried mango sweet and mango sweet with gravy. The mid-dried mango can be processed as a jams. The third step, wash the mango by cutting the mango, then pass the clear up of sap. The fourth step, sowing process by adding salt with the concentrate 1 kilo mango and 10 grams salt. The function of salt to reduce acid level and to make crunchy of the mango. The fifth step, raise the mango to clear up the salt. The sixth step, soak the mango for 12 hours in syrup with concentrate sugar ratio water is 1:1. The seventh step, soak the mango for 12 hours in heavy syrup with concentrate sugar ratio water 2:1. The ninth step, separate from the syrup and dry the mango is make as sweet, while the syrup from the process can be made a mango syrup. 10th step, the drying process. We can do the process conventionally using oven with the temperature is 60 degrees Celsius. 3 times for 2 times each time, or using vacuum drying for 2 hours. The 11th is cooling the mango sweet. The 12th, control the quality of microbiology, organoleptic, and nutrients content. The 13th, the product is packed and labeling. And finally, the product goes to the market with marketing strategy. Okay, next slide. More, next. Yeah. Okay. These are the variant of processed mango. Dried mango sweet with gravy, mango jam, and mango syrup. Next. Conclusion maybe. Next slide still. One more. Yeah. Conclusion and limitation. Mango can be processed into various preparations such as dried mango sweet with gravy, jam mango, and syrup mango. The second, salting technique able to reduce the sour taste of mangoes. To produce the mango as jam, use mid-ripe mango to avoid fiber is mango which is not acceptable to eat. Limitation. The process of various mango products are still conventional, so it's impossible for mass production and has not used drying vacuum. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Oda, for the explanation. Next, we move to the question and answer for Dr. Oda. Okay, we will share the question. Dr. Oda, you can answer it now.
Thank you for the question. The first question is, how can we ensure the consumption and production pattern in this pandemic efficient? A diet that is sufficient to maintain stamina during a pandemic. Indonesia people have a balanced eating guidelines, namely for healthy and 5 complete meals consist of staple food, a source of carbohydrate, come from rice, bread, pasta, etc. The secondly, side dishes as a source of protein come from meat, chicken, fish, eggs, etc. The thirdly, vegetable as source of vitamin and mineral come from green coloring vegetable such as carrot, beet, and radish. Fourthly, fruit as a source vitamin and mineral, all kind of fruit including mangoes, especially vitamin C. Fifthly, milk as a source vitamin and mineral, especially vitamin K. These 5 items meet the basic standard in daily meal. Next question. Okay. What should we do about food waste product from restaurant and hotel? The guide from the International Tourism Partnership, ITP, in collaboration with considerate hotelier mentioned waste from restaurant and hotel, we decant and release methane, CH4, and carbon dioxide, CO2. This may risk global warming. There are 3 solutions to solve the problem. First, prevention. Ensure the raw food material freshly. The second, optimize waste food can be distributed to the people who need or for the animal feed. Waste, the third, waste cycling, waste composted, or cover change the methane, CH4, and carbon dioxide, CO2, into energy. Thank you.
So we have Ibu Carissa Dinar, STMA. She is our lecturer at the architecture program. Okay, to Ibu Carissa, time is yours.
Thank you. First, let me share my screen. Good day, everyone. Hello. My name is Carissa. I'm a lecturer at Architectural Study Program in UIB. It's a great honor and indeed privilege, specifically for me, to be here amongst you, brilliant speakers and participants. First, I wish to thank Mrs. Rina and Ms. Noor for giving me an opportunity to be one of speakers in this webinar. Let me start by giving you background information. So this year, 2020, marks the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, and apparently the Earth is in need of a break from the hustle and bustle of human life. We are facing a global emergency, COVID-19 pandemic, and climate crisis, which actually has been a long time battle. Therefore, today, as an architecture and urban design enthusiast, I would like to talk about the power of design in battling against COVID-19 and climate crisis. As we may know, the impacts of climate crisis. Climate change continues to exacerbate the frequency and severity of natural disasters, like massive wildfires, droughts, hurricanes, floods, and it was affecting more than 39 million people in 2018. And even 2019 was the second warmest year on record. Global temperatures are projected to rise by up to 3.2 degrees Celsius by 2100, whereas an increase of 5 degrees could cause the death of millions of humans and the other living things. So yeah, what a number. Well, I need to tell you all here another important fact though. When the majority of people concerned about the economic and health conditions due to the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Earth seems having a recovery momentum environmentally. During this pandemic, the reduced mobility occurred in almost all parts of the world, and the decreased economic activity as well as the use of fossil fuels is contributing in reducing carbon emissions and improving air quality in a number of countries. I would like to illustrate my point by showing you these pictures. It's shown that in China particularly, on third week of January, in the third week of January, the level of carbon emissions was quite high. 2 months later, when they had a lockdown, the amount of carbon emissions has decreased significantly. Same thing happening in Italy, as we can see here. Well, besides that, there has been an improvement too in the air quality. In India, for example, within 2 years. Look, the clearer sky. It's beautiful, isn't it? Less pollution. But my question here is, will COVID-19 have a lasting positive impact on the environment? Sadly, I must say no. These positive impacts would likely be temporary if there is no sustainable recovery strategy to cope with both threats. Thus, the real question here is, what can we do to win a battle against COVID-19 and climate change at the same time? Hopefully, the recovery efforts in the economic and other sectors would not undermine the progress that has been carried out so far in tackling the climate crisis. Well, there is no current scientific study suggesting a direct connection between the emergence of COVID-19 and climate change. There is a widespread recognition that climate indeed affects health. Then I think failure to address common issues between them could make future pandemics more frequent and more severe. Okay, let me elaborate further firstly regarding the COVID-19 spread. The researchers have found correlation between the quality of air and COVID-19 impacts. More than 200 scientists claim that the coronavirus is not only primarily transmitted by touch and droplets sprayed from the mouth and nose, but also via airborne particles of liquid and material known as aerosols that stay suspended in the air for a long time. As you all may know, lately the case of COVID-19 spread in one of coffee shop in South Korea, where central air conditioner was used and they had poor ventilated room, which only twice a day to open the windows and each 10 minutes. So basically a person sitting under an air conditioner infecting 27 others with coronavirus at a Starbucks cafe in South Korea. But none of employees who were wearing masks got the virus. So the reason for indoor COVID-19 transmission, besides not wearing masks, of course, is air conditioning in the poor ventilated room. So, to limit infection risk indoors, sufficient and effective building ventilation is needed, as well as avoid air recirculation when possible, of course. Equally important is that room humidity should be maintained at between 40% and 60% by opening the windows, for instance, to reduce absorption of viruses through a person's nasal passages. And actually, I think this requirement in implementing good ventilation to minimize the spread of the disease might also reduce energy consumption in buildings. Thus, I would say again, there is an opportunity for us to combat COVID-19 and climate crisis simultaneously. Okay, turning our attention now to the efforts made by our government, Indonesia particularly, to respond to climate change in the wake of COVID-19. Generally, NDC, or Nationally Determined Contribution, promotes the low-carbon economic growth, and one of them is encouraging the transformation of low-carbon infrastructure and buildings. It believably has a vital role as the built environment is responsible for nearly 40% of global carbon emissions. Okay, I would like to expand on low carbon buildings then. This concept advocates sustainable and environmentally friendly designs. The main objectives are to minimize the use of non-renewable resources and the negative impacts on the environment, as well as to improve the quality of indoor air through energy efficiency, including building and landscape services, the use of energy, water, as well as behavior and lifestyle. Narrowing down, there are two main aspects in building and landscape sectors that are design and construction. Let me elaborate further the power this building design holds. As an environmental friendly architectural concept design, there are several levels of operational system based on the use of energy in the buildings. The lowest level of energy consumption without or in minimum use of mechanical electrical equipment for renewable resources is called passive design. And there are hybrid design, active design, and the last is productive design, which generates their own energy from renewable resources, such as solar cell systems and solar collectors. Therefore, it's relatively costly to construct one. Then the minimum way we can do is implement the passive design. Actually, this passive design uses characteristics of the local climate to maintain a comfortable temperature range inside the building, then reduces or removes the need for artificial heating, cooling, and lighting when possible by controlling the heat of air flows through the envelope of the building and capturing natural cooling breezes. Based on the Energy Efficiency Guidebook for Building Design in Indonesia, the application of natural lighting or sunlight can save energy costs by up to 50%, and the increasement of fresh air movement in buildings can reduce energy consumption by 10%. And there are 6 key elements in implementing passive design. There are understanding local climate, building orientation, home layout, building envelope, window and shading design, and then cross ventilation. However, I intend to focus on window and shading design and cross ventilation as well, because those quite relates to what I was saying earlier about COVID-19 spread. Okay, shading should deal with solar gain from all sides. as this would impact the heatroom. And then to encourage entrance of cooling breezes, windows should be able to open safely and securely. If no solar heat gain is required, blackout shading is recommended. Here is some examples as you can see in these pictures. Like we can simply add an overhang at the top of our window so no direct sun enters the space. Or put the curtain, the window so sunlight enters space and heat builds between curtain and window. Or using a double glazed window so the heated air builds in the window itself and is exhaled to the exterior. Alternatively, we can use vegetative shading like this one. We can put a leafy tree to block the solar emission, or otherwise we can put a leafless tree to let the sunlight come in. Okay, so there are another examples in designing the overhang, including horizontal and vertical panels. This depends on the ideal building orientation as well as the view restriction. Let's move on to cross ventilation. Boosting the thermal performance of a building will improve comfort and reduce energy consumption. Access to ample fresh air and natural light has health benefits for occupants. Capturing breeze is an effective way to cool the interior of building. Good cross ventilation considers the direction of cooling breezes, mid-height entry openings, simple pathway, and oversized the exit, like this picture. And I can give you another example, like here. Like this, a mid-height inlet directs the air to flow to the occupants. Like this. Or an overhang like this can increase the flow of air. Okay, let me sum up my main points today. Improving the quality of indoor air through low carbon design helps to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic and climate crisis simultaneously. While renewable energy systems are considerably costly, a minimum way to achieve low carbon buildings could be implementing passive design by looking first to use the climate and other natural resources to create buildings that are naturally comfortable and healthy for occupants. And last but not least, however, letting the built environment fight alone will not affect much in dealing with this global emergency. Thus, collaborative action is essential. All stakeholders, from individual like each of us, need to take actions. Government, private sectors, and the others. I know this is my hard, and this is hard actually. But our climate is changing. Why aren't we, right? So yeah, thank you for your attention. I'm happy now for answering any questions you might have. Okay, so interesting questions here. The first one, what are the solutions for goal-13 while there are more industries and infrastructures which contribute more pollution to our nature? Well, yeah, actually, there has already been policies related to the industrial sector and climate change. In M.Msi itself, for example, made by our government, it encourages the industrial sector transition to low carbon investment on natural basis, of course, and increasing the use of renewable energy. So the fire control system is quite important here to actively ensure all industry and infrastructure implement low carbon development. And the second one is how to construct houses and buildings which are environmentally friendly. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, that low carbon buildings is environmentally friendly. Therefore, to construct one, we need to consider some aspects, like first, ensure the implementation of green building, which having access to renewable energy if possible. Otherwise, simply use energy optimally related to cooling, heating, and lighting in our house. In other words, embrace the local climate. Second is use local material for constructing a new house. And the third, affordability is also important. And the fourth, it's important too to remember that building don't use energy, but people do. So the way we use a house will largely affect the amount of emissions, regardless of the low carbon emissions, low carbon principles, applied in its design and construction. Thus, change our behavior first and then change our world. Thank you.
Next, we have Dr. Agustina Fitrianing Room. Our last presenter will talk about goal 14. To Dr. Agustina, time is yours.
So in the next slide, yeah, it's very beautiful creature in the world, but let us see the fact about the what is happening now in our sea. So ocean actually covers more than 70% of our planet Earth, and over 3 billion people depends on the marine ecosystem. So we really depends on the ocean, and ocean is really a big mystery because currently is only around 200,000 fish are identified, while millions are unidentified one. It means that ocean is our big treasures. Unfortunately, human activities such as shipping and other things that cause underwater noise pollution roughly endanger 5% of known species. Then it was reported by International Union for Conservation of Nature. So plenty more fish in the sea. Is it a real or a myth? In the next slides, maybe some of you knows that this special cartoon characters, SpongeBob. Our ocean is like a giant SpongeBob. It absorbs everything. Currently, it absorbs 30% of carbon dioxide, and it increased the ocean acidity. Now it is up to 26% from the pre-industrial times, and it affects the world's coral. And it is reported that 20% of world's coral has already been destroyed, and yeah, it's really sad that it's no prospect for recovery. Okay, so this is the ocean, and it has really shown that our ocean is become the giant sponge. Currently, after outbreak 19, people wash more vegetables before we put on our refrigerators, and also we use more disinfectant. We wash our hands with soap. Where it goes, it all goes to our ocean. And in the ocean, currently it is reported that on the beach, 2,000 kilograms of waste or garbage at the surface of the beach. 1,000 kilograms per kilometers. And then on the ocean or surface, it's 18 kilogram per kilometers. And deep in the sea floor, it's 70 kilograms of trash. How to clean up the sea floor? How expensive it is. So it's really better if we can reduce activity that make a pollutant in the ocean. Okay, this is the data. It's actually difficult to measure how big the garbage on the sea actually, but so researchers say it's around 5 millions. In 2013, there is a Dutch investor called Boyanslat that pioneering the founded company Ocean Cleanup. It's start to create a floating cleanup platform that able to clean up until 50% of the Great Pacific garbage patch within 5 years. So this is one of big startup to clean up the ocean. I hope that more people are doing the same activity to support these ocean cleanup activities. The next slides. Okay, so actually in the SDGs 14, it's divided into 3 big themes regarding to tourism at all 2018. So it based on the marine pollution. Marine pollution, so there is a one target that should be achieved, that is reduce marine pollution by 2025. So we have 5 years to go to really prevent the significant reduce marine pollution. And the second theme is ocean and climate. So this is trying to achieve the target to protect and restore ecosystem, reduce ocean acidification, and conserve coastal and marine areas. While the third theme is sustainable use of marine and ocean resources. So, okay, in this theme, we have to find effective regulation to harvest and end overfishing, prohibited certain forms of fisheries subsidized, which contribute to overcapacity and overfishing. And in 2030, we are expecting to increase the economic benefit to small islands, developing states, and least developed countries from sustainable use of marine resources. In the next slides, I would like to show the interrelationship between SDGs number 14 to other SDGs goal. Okay, so in the slides, you can see that SDGs below water has a relationship with number 6, 7, and 8. Number 6 is water and sanitation. So this is the process from the downstream to the upstreams of the water and sanitation management. It gives benefit for the industrial development to build the energy, but then it also gives a negative impact to the ocean if we do not take care of the upstream to downstream activities on the land. And then it also has relationship to number 1, 2, 8, and 12 because in the sea we can find fish, we can find other supporting lives for us like seaweed and everything. The food are provided by the ocean, so it's expected to reduce the poverty and increase the economic growth and also reduce the hunger, and it's expected for us to have a sustainable consumption. It's also related to goal number 13, climate change, and 15, protecting ecosystem. And all these things will be achieved if we have accountable institution to govern all the policies and regulations. So it's also related to SDGs number 16. Okay, so SDGs number 14 cannot be achieved by a single activities, but it's really comprehensive, regulation, comprehensive policy, comprehensive implementation to realize that. In the next slides, okay, so the picture is really beautiful, isn't it? So it's in Indonesia, one of the island in province Kepulauan Riau. Okay, so it's so blue, then I put that picture as the blue economy and sustainable of marine resources. Actually, climate change is happening faster than we thought. I think we can agree that it is said by Kristalina Georgieva as the CEO of the World Bank. It's a calling on the government and business to eliminate harmful subsidies for energy and agriculture. Invest in shifting to a carbon low economy. Support those countries most at risk from the consequences of climate change and relentlessly pursue a price for carbon. So we have understand now that achieving sustainable use of the ocean and marine resources means that balancing economic, social, and environment needs. So that's the core principle of SDGs number 14. Blue economy and sustainable management of the marine resources. Of course, the fishing industry is one of the key sectors in the blue economy concepts. So this is relationship between fishery industries and how marine resources will strengthen the blue economy. And then it should be supported with the strength policy framework. Currently, high sea, it means that ocean which no countries has territory on that, so it's regulated by UN. It consists of 58%. So it's really a big number. Then the regulation on the high sea should be more strength. So for the academician, governments, we can focus to contribute more in this aspect so that it will be the guideline for the business sector and also all the stakeholders to have implementation. And it's really include a broad spectrum of stakeholders. In the next slides, okay, so in the next slide, we can find that there are some green strategic practices for international shipping to protect ocean. For example, the first is speed reduction. Greenpeace advised for ships to reduce their speed because it will produce less carbon dioxide, and it means will reduce the pollutant in the ocean. And the second one, by reducing the speed, it also reduces the noise pollution in the ocean. It is important because I think we, as a human, also experience, if we have a noise pollution around us, we cannot think. So we cannot talk clearly, we cannot understand, we cannot communicate. It's also happen to the ocean. If the noise pollutant is too high, the fish in the sea cannot communicate. They cannot find their food. They cannot find their mates, and also difficult to take care of their young. So it's really advised for the ship to reduce their speed because it's also reduce the possibility to have incident with the whale strikes. The second one is implementation of International Maritime Organization Guideline 2014. IMO published guideline to reduce also underwater noise from commercial shipping and protect marine life. I think this is really important, how to balance the economic and environment needs to support the people quality living. So in the guidelines, it's state that ships have to design in such a way in order to reduce water noise. And the second, propellers should be designed and selected in order to reduce cavitation. And the third, ship hull form with its appendages should be designed such that wake field is as homogeneous as possible. The fourth, consideration should be given to onboard machinery along with appropriate vibration control measure. And the fifth one is operational modification and maintenance measure are ways of reducing noise for both new and existing ships. So in this guidelines, it can be implemented for the measuring key performance indicators of birth. So currently only 30% of the birth that already implement the measurement for sustainable key performance indicator for the birth. And then this is the last slide. I would like to highlight the SDGs number 14, that it's all about caring for our ocean. The saying, plenty more fish in the sea, is looking like it soon maybe become obsolete. So we have to stand together, taking action to help people, wildlife, and global economy. Ocean is everyone's problem. Then it should be responsible for everyone to taking care of it. Protecting our ocean's health must be among the top priorities in the worldwide. Okay, so thank you so much for the time. It's really beautiful white sand island. I hope after a COVID outbreak, you can go and visit beautiful cities, islands, hinterlands in Indonesia. Thank you. Thank you for the questions that address to goals number 14. How to balance the performance maritime business and goal 14? Yeah, this is really challenging. International Maritime Organization has already made a regulation in order to create a healthier business, especially to support the international business. Shipping is the main vehicles to support that. That's why IMO tried to give the guidelines that purpose to reduce the noise pollution in the ocean. So it can make a harmony between the maritime business and also Goal 41. Then it's expected that the triple bottom line, the balance of economic, social, and environmental, as the aspect core of SDGs number 14 can be achieved. Of course, it's need all participation from the government, business sectors, and also all people that involved in this aspect. I hope that's answered the first questions. The second question is, how does Indonesia respond to oil leakage in the sea? I think the leakage in the sea is really big issues, and near bottom ocean also happened this leakage in November 2019. Then Indonesian government actually have the presidential regulation number 109 2006. It is a guideline for the implementation of management and indemnity of the impact of oil spill on the fish resources. So it's a comprehensive activities what to be done and who has responsibility on that. However, the Ocean Watch Indonesia states that the response to the oil leakage is not really satisfied with the current result, because in the last 3 years in Indonesia also, have this kind of problem, oil leakage in the sea. Hopefully that the Ministry of Environment, Forestry or KLHK will give more responsible action to ensure that intensive supervision, especially activities that risk of polluting and damaging ocean, will be better now and also in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you to Dr. Agustina for the presentation and the answer. As for Dr. Monira Ahsan that I've mentioned first, unfortunately, she can make it to become a presenter today, but we will include her presentation in the YouTube. And this is the profile of Dr. Monira Ahsan, also the video that she prepared to present at this webinar.
Good morning. Welcome to the lecture on Sustainable Development Goal 15, Life on Land. Let us first look at what is in SDG 15. The Sustainable Development Goal 15 of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development basically refers to protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainably manage forests, combat desertification, and halt and reverse land degradation and halt biodiversity loss. So therefore, the target of SDG 15 cover a broad range of issues around the protection of forests, mountains, wetlands, and drylands, including both animal and plant life. This also includes proper use and management of forests, active restoration, conservation, and protection of forests, fair and equitable benefit sharing, ending poaching and trafficking of flora and fauna, preventing and reducing the impact of alien species, integrating ecosystem and biodiversity values into planning process. Now let us look at what are the international instruments and measures are in place in order to achieve SDG 15, life on land. So if we first look at international instruments and measures, in terms of biodiversity and ecosystem, there are a number of instruments are in place. For instance, the UN Conference on Sustainable Development and the Outcome Document, Rio Plus 20 Conference, The Future We Want 2012. Then the Future We Want document reaffirmed the values and critical role of biodiversity. The document, The Future We Want, also reiterated the importance of implementing the strategic plan for biodiversity 2011 to 2020 and achieving the Aichi biodiversity targets. There is also World Summit on Sustainable Development that was held in Johannesburg in 2002, addressed the biodiversity in Chapter 4. Then conservation of biodiversity, the subject of Chapter 15 of Agenda 21, was adopted at the UN Conference on Environment and Development in 1992 in Rio de Janeiro. Furthermore, the UN Convention on Biological Diversity was entered into force in 1993. If we now look at what are the international instruments and measures are in place in terms of preventing desertification, land degradation, and drought, we see that there are a number of instruments are in place as well. For instance, the UN Convention to Combat Desertification was established in 1994, and its 10-year strategic plan and framework that covers the range of 2008 to 2018. Then the sectoral cluster of land, desertification, forests, and biodiversity and mountains that are also included in chapters 10 to 13 and 15 of Agenda 21 were considered in 1995 and 1997. Furthermore, the Intergovernmental Negotiation Committee was established in 1994 to prepare an international convention to combat desertification. Moreover, an international convention was adopted in Paris on 17 June 1994 to combat desertification in those countries experiencing severe drought and or desertification, particularly in Africa. Finally, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations is assigned as the task manager for Chapter 10 of Agenda 21. And now if we look at what are the instruments and measures are in place in order to protect the forests. For instance, the core of the Durban Declaration that was declared in 2015 was the future of forests and forestry in sustainable development at all levels. The International Day of Forests launched in 2013 and the International Year of Forests proclaimed in 2011. So these are the two international observance to protect the interest of forests. Furthermore, Chapter 11 of Agenda 21 is entitled Combating Deforestation, targets at sustaining the multiple roles and functions of all types of forest lands and woodlands. And now let's look at the instruments, international instruments and measures that are in place in order to protect the mountains. For instance, target number 1 of SDG 15 says that mountains among the ecosystems to be conserved, restored, and sustainably used in line with international agreements. Similarly, prior to Rio Plus 20, sustainable mountain development was discussed in 1997. Moreover, International Year of Mountains was declared in 22 and a draft resolution recommended by the Economic and Social Council. Two program areas of Chapter 13 of Agenda 21 that highlighted the problem of fragile mountain ecosystems. Number one, generating and strengthening knowledge about the ecology and sustainable development of mountain ecosystems, and secondly, promoting integrated watershed development and alternative livelihood opportunities. So these are the international instruments and measures are in place in order to protect the mountains, under the broad umbrella of SDG 15, life on land. In order to achieve the goal 15, life on land, national sustainable development strategies were promulgated in 1992. So basically, the national sustainable development strategies was proposed in Agenda 21, where countries were called upon to integrating economic, social, and environmental objectives into one strategically focused blueprint for action at the national level. Then the Johannesburg Plan of Implementation that was adopted at the World Summit on Sustainable Development in 2002 urged the member states to progress in formulation and elaboration of national strategies for sustainable development and to begin their implementation by 2005. And then the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and its 17 SDGs into national context, as seen in the voluntary national reviews, underlie core principles embedded in the national implementation of SDGs globally. So these are the national sustainable development strategies, adopted at the global level, targeted at the member states to implement SDGs at country level. Now, if we reflect on SDG 15, life on land, at the global context, then we see what was the context before COVID-19 pandemic. If we briefly capture the status before COVID-19 in relation to SDG 15, life on land, we see that the world was falling short on 2020 targets to halt biodiversity loss. For example, over 31,000 species were threatened with extinction, 27% of over 116,000 assessed species in the International Union for Conservation of Nature Red List, which is quite alarming. And then forest areas continued to decline at an alarming rate, driven mainly by agricultural expansion. Furthermore, each year 10 million hectares of forest were destroyed. That was quite alarming as well. As per the data, 2 billion hectares of land on Earth were degraded, affecting some 3.2 billion people, driving species to extinction and intensifying climate change. So until the COVID situation, only a third of 113 countries were on track to achieve their national target to integrate biodiversity into national planning. So if that was the situation before COVID-19 pandemics, then what are the implications of COVID-19 at global context in relation to SDG 15, life on land? We see that wildlife tracking disrupts ecosystems and contributes to the spread of infectious diseases because pangolins are possibly the intermediary animal that transferred the coronavirus. During 2014 and 2018, there was an estimate that the equivalent of 370,000 pangolins were seized globally. So until now, I have discussed, what the Sustainable Development Goal 15, the areas that highlighted the international instruments and measures that are in place to tackle achieving Sustainable 15 Goal 15. And then what was the situation before COVID in relation to this goal, life on land? I have also briefly highlighted the COVID, the implications of COVID at global context. So now I would like to shift our attention from the global to the local in the context of Bangladesh. How is it, addressing in the context of Bangladesh, how the Bangladesh government is addressing the Sustainable Development Goal 15 to achieve its stated objective. If we see the Bangladesh context, we see that the forest coverage of the country now stands at 14.47%. Bangladesh has successfully brought a large swath of newly accredited coastal lands under afforestation program. Currently, 140,000 hectares of land is under mangrove plantation, which is a very positive stand, I would say. And then the coastal afforestation program has been accelerated to bring more lands under afforestation program. Bangladesh also currently has 40 protected areas in different locations across the country. Besides, a total of 21 protected areas, including 7 national parks, 12 wildlife sanctuaries, 1 marine protected areas, and 1 special biodiversity conservation areas have been declared by the government to conserve wildlife and their habitats since 2010. Besides, in 2015, 1.7% of the terrestrial area was covered under protected area, which was increased to 3.08% in 2018, a positive stand in this regard. So, despite some positive, stories and positive measures taken by the government, as well as actually there are initiatives by the development sector as well to complement the government initiatives. Still, there are challenges in terms of achieving the Sustainable Development Goal 15, life on land. So some of the challenges that I have captured here in this lecture that includes a lack of coordination among ministries, divisions for effective implementation of the goals action plan. Besides, one of the major challenges for achieving SDG 15 is the unavailability of baseline data, which is crucial in order to set targets and measure achievements. Because only 8 out of 14 indicators of the SDG 15 had baseline data. Other challenges include a lack of guidance to generate new data, outdated data, limited tools and methods for data disaggregation, lack of coordination in data sharing among agencies, and lack of knowledge about international metadata standards. Besides other challenges that exist in Bangladesh that also include in the areas of liquefied natural gas. So LNG imports expose Bangladesh to actually international gas trade price, which has several consequences at national level because the weighted average of Bangladesh gas tariff is estimated to jump from 1.7 per gigajoules dollar to at least 3.1 per gigajoules dollar, building huge infrastructure including port, rail transport, and coal stocking structures to handle this massive volume of coal is a challenge. Besides, energy pricing and subsidies present a challenge to the economy, which is in one way or the other affects achieving the SDG 15. Finally, a recent influx of Rohingya refugees from Myanmar is putting some pressure on forest in Teknaf, Cox's Bazar areas where Rohingya refugees have constituted the largest refugee camp in the world. Already 6,000 acres of forest land have been allotted for temporary housing for the refugees. So this also has created some challenges on the environment of that region. So I'd like to now talk about what can be done to achieve the target that was set under SDG 15. What is the way forward? For example, if we think about a concerted efforts and policy supports to agricultural diversification, that could be one strategy. Accelerated investment in agricultural research for development of stress-tolerant crop varieties and technological innovation. Besides expanding social protection programs and microfinance programs, other measures can be the government is introducing high efficient power plants into the national power grid. Eligible single cycle power plants are being upgraded to combined cycle power plants. All the upcoming coal power plants are being equipped with latest ultra super critical technology, flue gas desulfurization, and electrostatic precipitator to minimize the impact on environment. So floating storage regasification units are under construction for importing liquefied natural gas in the country. Other measure is the government is giving assistance to the private sector in terms of incentives for implementing renewable energy-based generation facilities. The current 5-year plan 2016 to 2020 emphasizes on employment generation for increasing labor force by fostering creating of productive and inclusive jobs in the country. So other measures, so these are the measures that some of them have already been adopted, some of them have been under considerations, and some of them are on the wish list that can be considered seriously in order to address this agenda. So other way forward that can also include the national as well as the regional as well as international collaboration. Before I go to international or regional collaboration discussion, I would like to highlight a few more measures or thoughts that can also be considered as a way forward to address this current scenario. For instance, in facing the climate change scenarios, Bangladesh is well prepared with a number of climate change related strategies, plans, and actions. For example, through Bangladesh Climate Change Trust Fund, Bangladesh has spent around taka 27 billion over the last 8 years in climate change adaptation measures. And Bangladesh has also adopted a 100-year Delta plan to face up climate change adverse impacts. So another measure is the government has already imposed a 2-month fishing ban in the Bay of Bengal during fish breeding season in order to conserve fish resources. In order to assess the fish stock of the bay, a fish stock assessment survey has been started this year. Besides, an estimated 50,000 hectare land of hill forest and 5,000 hectare of plain land forest will be planted during the next 5-year plan period, and an area of 3,000 hectare will be planted and replanted in the coastal areas under the same plan. And besides, the existing mature coastal plantations will remain for reinforcing the Green Belt agenda. So, if all these initiatives that have been already in place and some of them are under implementation, and we need to, you know, continue these efforts in order to achieve the targets and goal set under SDG 15. So a little earlier, I was talking about Bangladesh has also initiated regional and international initiatives to tackle this pandemic-related implications to in order to achieve SDG 15 life on land. For example, prospects of regional cooperation on achieving sustainable goals. The General Economic Division of the country of Bangladesh Planning Commission made an exercise in 2019 on assessing international cooperation for SDGs implementation for the remaining period, that is from 2019 till 2030. Besides, international cooperation can also be strengthened in South Asian region, so far the least integrated region in the world, though as the importance of South-South and triangular cooperation in international development cooperation has grown significantly in recent times. Besides, the Asia-Pacific region offers some good examples where triangular cooperation has been undertaken within and outside the UN platform. For example, ESCAP Multi-Donor Trust Fund for Tsunami, Disaster and Climate Preparedness in Indian Ocean and Southeast Asian countries. So, briefly, I have discussed what is Sustainable Development Goal 15, which is life on land. I have also discussed the four major areas of Sustainable Development Goal 15, which are biodiversity and ecosystem, desertification, land degradation and drought, forest and mountains. I have drawn on international measures and instruments that are in place in each of the four areas of the SDG 15, life on land. Then I highlighted the National Sustainable Development Strategies proposed in 1992 in Agenda 21, where countries were called upon to integrating economic, social, and environmental objectives into one strategically focused blueprint for action at the national level. And then I reflected on the SDG 15, Life on Land, at a global context before COVID and the implications of COVID globally. And then I shifted my focus from global to local in the context of Bangladesh, how Bangladesh is doing in achieving the goal and targets set under Sustainable Development Goal 15, Life on Land. I also, in order to discuss how Bangladesh is doing in terms of implementing SDG 15, I have reflected on some positive achievements as well as some challenges, and then I delineated how to way forward. So, briefly, this discussion aims at achieving the goal and target set under Sustainable Development Goal 15, the challenges that exist globally as well as the challenges exist nationally. So this lecture is going to help spread the awareness in terms of the significance of SDGs and our respective roles and responsibilities. Thank you. Yes, in terms of the question, answering the question, number one, what are the policies that Bangladesh government has already adopted in order to achieve Sustainable Development Goal 15? Um, Bangladesh has basically has adopted a number of policies and measures to ensure the effective implementation of the goal and target under SDG 15. For example, Article 18A of the Constitution of Bangladesh provides that the state shall endeavor to protect and improve the environment and to preserve and safeguard the natural resources, biodiversity, wetlands, forest, and wildlife for the present and future citizens. Wildlife Conservation and Sanctuary Act 2012 further ensures the conservation of wildlife, forest, and biodiversity. Furthermore, Bangladesh has also ratified the Big Five international wildlife laws, which are the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of World Fauna and Flora in 1973, Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species of Wild Animals in 1979, Convention on Biological Diversity in 1992, Ramsar Conservation 1971, and the World Heritage Convention in 1972 as well. Besides, Bangladesh is a party to the International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture, according to 2018 data. It says the protocol provides a greater legal certainty and transparency for both providers and users of genetic resources and associated traditional knowledge. It helps to ensure benefit sharing in genetic knowledge and resources. In Bangladesh, there is no legislative measures to the access and benefit sharing clearinghouse according to 2012 data. However, Bangladesh is not a party to the Nagoya Protocol that provides greater legal certainty and transparency for both providers and users of genetic resources and associated traditional knowledge. Based on the globally accepted principles of sustainable development defined through Agenda 21 of the Rio Declaration, Johannesburg Declaration, and International Plan and Environment and Development in Asia and the Pacific, the government of Bangladesh has approved the National Sustainable Development Strategy 2020 and 2021. So the National Development the National Sustainable Development Strategy has addressed mainstreaming sustainable development challenges across sectors and integrates economic, social, and environmental objectives across sectors. In view of the long-term challenges presented by climate change and natural hazards, the government has formulated a long-term Bangladesh Delta Plan 2100 is a water-centric, comprehensive, integrated, holistic, and long-term plan for Bangladesh. So it is a techno-economic plan that includes a framework for its implementation with an investment plan phased out in short, medium, and long-term interventions. So Bangladesh Delta Plan is envisioned to ensure long-term water and food security, economic growth and environmental sustainability while effectively coping with natural disasters, climate change and other delta issues throughout robust, adaptive and integrated strategies and equitable water governance. So, besides other strategies and policies that exist in Bangladesh concerning, Sustainable Development Goal 15 also include that following Bangladesh Environment Protection Act 1995, which was amended In 2010, the Ministry of Environment and Forest on 22nd February 2015 made a gazette notification declaring environment impact assessment and environment management plan as compulsory for every investment project at the approval stage, along with getting the environmental clearance from the Department of Environment for every project. Besides, by 2020, integrate ecosystem and biodiversity values into national and local planning and development processes, poverty reduction strategies and accounts initiatives have been undertaken by the government as well to update national biodiversity strategy and action plan in line with the Aichi biodiversity targets and implement the NBSAP as global commitments as a party to the UN Convention on Biological Diversity and the Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety to Convention on Biological Diversity. Furthermore, in Bangladesh, the Biodiversity Act 2017 has been enacted that has covered the legislative, administrative, and policy frameworks to ensure fair and equitable sharing of benefits and considerations have been integrated into related plans, programs, and policies of Bangladesh with a view of mainstreaming it across actors and sectors. So now I would like to respond to the questions how Bangladesh government is tackling the protecting life on plan, life on land under this COVID pandemic. So definitely the socioeconomic effects of COVID-19 will undoubtedly impede the journey to 2030 agenda, including Agenda 15, life on land. In respect of COVID-19, Bangladesh has shown the importance of protecting the wildlife for the health of the planet and as well as the humankind. Bangladesh has already formulated the National Preparedness and Response Plan to contain the COVID-19 pandemic in March 2020. The government has already adopted a comprehensive emergency response plan incorporating health and socio-economic recovery measures, which also includes the stimulus packages of US roughly 12 billion, which is 3.7% of the national GDP, to be implemented in 3 phases: immediate, long and medium term until 2023 and 2024. So in order to offset the negative impact on life so that it doesn't really influence negatively on the life on the land in different ways. Finally, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the natural environment has been quite complex. On the one hand, air pollution has declined on account of slowdown in economic activity, but on the other hand, the disposal of large quantities of personal protective equipment poses an environmental threat. So the crisis has highlighted the urgency of more sustainable means of production and consumption. And as a cross-cutting issue, the issue of governance, which which can be discussed as well under SDG 16, is also crucial to ensure the accountability of the government measures that are already taken to tackle the crisis. The government machinery, including its employees, police, armed forces, local government institutions, have to ensure accountability and transparency while delivering relief, cash or kind, and providing stimulus packages. No land should be barren. So this is one of the slogans. A few more points that I would like to discuss here concerning and the measures to address the COVID pandemic in realizing SDG 15, which include the food production system needs to be maintained and more crops need to be produced for ensuring food security of the population. A national committee headed by the Honorable Minister of Health and Family Welfare has already been constituted to take necessary steps for the prevention and control of coronavirus. And the foreign ministries of the SAARC countries are working together to implement the proposed recommendations. The leaders have already decided to form a joint fund where Bangladesh has already announced to contribute 1.5 million US dollars. So these are the some national and regional measures that are in place to tackle and address the implications due to COVID pandemic in realizing the goal and targets set under Sustainable Development Goal 15. Thank you.
Okay, finally we reach end of agenda of webinar series Sustainable Development Goal, the fourth series, Pillar of Environmental Development. Thank you so much for our presenter and also participant. And as for the closing speech will be delivered by Ms. Rina Shahrullah. Time is yours.
Thank you very much, Ibu Nur. I would like to thank all participants and also presenters from India, South Korea, Bangladesh, Madagascar, and Indonesia for their remarkable and interesting presentations. We just learned that all of us can actively participate in implementing and achieving Goal 12, 13, 14, and 15. The sustainability, cleanliness, and healthiness of our planet are our responsibility and part of our fundamental rights. Human rights in relation to the implementation of the SDGs are one of the courses offered by Master of Law program of Universitas International Batam. The Democracy and Human Rights course especially discusses and analyzes issues and challenges of human rights at local, national, and international level and attempts to find solutions by using the SDGs as the parameters and success indicators. It does not merely focus on the theoretical and conceptual approaches, but it provides opportunities to students to conduct concrete actions by applying their knowledge to solve the problems and to support the achievement of the SDGs at the local level. Before ending this closing speech, again, I would like to thank all speakers for their interesting discussions. I also thank the Master of Ceremony, IT team who works behind the screen to ensure that no troubles occurring during the webinar. Last but not least, all participants who are still joining us with this webinar until the end. Thank you so much, and I expect you to join us again next month because we have a monthly program on this webinar until December. And we are going to discuss other goals of the SDGs. Please stay safe, healthy, and happy. Thank you very much.